You perform ordinances. You perform the constellations in a temple so that you can understand how you are the temple of the cosmos. We've become completely illiterate in the universal language that all of the world scriptures were written in.
Ladies and gentlemen, all is well in the world because I'm with my wife. And Hayden and I had the opportunity to come back a few days early from deployment and surprise our wives. Here's a little sneak peek of how that went for Grace and I.
It went exactly as I imagined, you know, just in my pink bathrobe, just waiting for 10 months for that moment, so no big deal. Whatever.
And then here's what it looked like for Hayden surprising his wife and 3 beautiful kids.
Can you believe it's Halloween,
Wait, who's that kid in the backpack?
Dad.
Hey! Oh my gosh!
Guys, who is it?
Sweetie, how are you?
Oh my gosh, I like shaking.
Joey. Come to Dad. Hey! Oh my gosh. Buddy.
Mom,
Joey.
I didn't know he was coming either.
Babe. So good to
Is
see
this even
you.
real?
Okay. Hi, Joey. If that doesn't bring you to tears, I'd question if you have a human beating heart in your chest, but I digress. The video we have for you today is incredible.
Sorry, Jack, I gotta cut in because you're totally going to undersell this episode. Guys, it's 2 a.m. right now. I'm just about to finish the episode, and I'm telling you, I know this is a long video. Break it up for as long as you need to, but listen to this all the way through. I'm telling you, this has been absolutely mind expanding. I've been feeling the spirit as I've been on the 6-hour drive super late into the night, just over and over and over again. I can't say I completely understand everything that's coming through at this point, but I know there's something there. Just stick through to the end. They're gonna talk a lot about the art, and then near the end, they're gonna go through a panel and actually explain some of the stuff. I can already tell this is the start of a conversation that I'm gonna wanna have with this guy as soon as we're back in the studio. So I just do this because I want you guys to really dig into this. Take the time to listen to all the way through, share with your friends. That is my plug.
And I know we've said it dozens of times, but our gratitude to all of you for supporting the channel as we've been gone, especially those that supported monetarily through donations so that Brandon and others could produce amazing content as we've been gone. Everyone, if you like The Stick of Joseph, it's because Brandon Russin is the greatest editor and thumbnail maker. He's awesome. And so shout out to you, Brandon. Please don't cut this out of the intro. But without further ado, Kamron Coleman.
Hey, welcome to The Stick of Joseph. I am Dave Butler, and I'm here in the studio with my good friends Kamron Coleman and Brad Whitbeck, Apostle 2028. Very excited to be here. Before we get into the conversation, which is, I think, going to be pretty lit today.
Lit like the stars in the night sky.
Yes, to use the terminology like the youth that I am. I think it's going to be very interesting. But first, take a minute, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, so we can so you keep hearing about more exciting content.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to have a very broad-ranging conversation, and I want to set it up. So by way of I'll give you in a minute. I'll ask you to introduce yourself. But Kamron is an artist, sculptor originally. Became I shouldn't say you're not a sculptor anymore, but got also into graphic art, multimedia graphic art that includes incorporates oil paintings and sort of blueprint type or other kinds of computer drawn graphic elements. And you're working on a massively ambitious piece of art. And I'll
massive enough you can see it behind us. This is...
Yeah, in fact, what you're seeing is approximately 2 of the 36 panels that currently exist, 35 plus the cover, and there will ultimately be 2 of 72 panels. So this is 1/36th that you're seeing of what will ultimately be the piece of art. Okay, and I think we're going to hold up here.
Good math.
Yeah, so, I played D&D as a kid. I can do math like that.
Yeah.
So we got some panels down here that we'll lift up and show you, because I think the whole currently existing thing is stacked in front of us also.
Yeah, the 36 panels that are finished are here, and these are to scale of what's here. So this,
right,
this
like this
panel
1/3 in all dimensions or something like that, 1/2
is this 8 feet of
Got it.
panel.
Got it.
Scale wise.
Yeah. So here's the part where I risk rambling. But let me kind of put together a couple of real high level kind of ideas. And one is, and I don't think we were recording, which is too bad. We had a great conversation before we started about kind of left brain versus right brain approaches to things. And I've recently been reading Ian McGilchrist, who is a poet and a critic and a writer and also a neuroscientist. And his book, The Matter with Things, is amazing. Okay? And let me sort of summarize a little bit of what McGilchrist says. We have left and right hemispheres in our brain. And what I was told when I was a kid is that the left brain was logical and the right brain was creative. And that was kind of basically all I was told. And that turns out to be we know more now. Okay, those are not wrong. They were rough approximations. We have a better approximation of what the two hemispheres are about. And it's in McGilchrist's account, it's that they pay different kinds of attention. So the left brain is really focused, has a narrow focus. In fact, it's so narrow, the left brain doesn't actually contemplate anything at all. What it's contemplating, anything that's real, what it's contemplating is a model that it has created to enable it to work with something specific. Okay? So the left brain is the hunter trying to shoot the deer, and the left brain is really focused, and it has a model of what I see of the deer, and therefore a calculation of how far away the deer is, and a model of my drawing back the bowstring, right? And it's a very narrow focus, and the left brain is really good at manipulating tools and solving systematic problems. Like in this engine, I can analyze through and find the problem and fix it, right? And that's the left brain, right? The right brain pays attention to everything all the time. Okay, and it's in the right brain that, for example, identity lives. Because what is the identity of Kamron Coleman? Well, it's not a simplistic model. It's Kamron Coleman's relationship to every single thing to which Kamron Coleman relates, and that's a million things, right? Kamron has father relationships, and he has husband relationships, and he has neighbor and parishioner and, supplier and artist relationships, and he has relationships across time, right? Kamron's a million things, and so an understanding of the identity of Kamron Coleman is over in the right brain. And the challenge is that we can't see the right brain. It's unconscious. right? And so how we work in day-to-day life. So signals we get out of the right brain are sort of they're intuitive, right? Or we may feel them, or we understand a thing. We can't necessarily articulate why we understand the thing because it came out of the right brain. The left brain hasn't put together a model by which it can articulate, here's how I know the thing.
Yeah.
Right? And
our current society doesn't really like that.
That's correct. That's correct. It in the West, right? In the modern West, we have this is part of McGilchrist's argument. We've leaned really far away from the right brain, and so you see this organizationally, where everything has sort of corporate type organizational structures and ambitions and ideas about the importance of efficiency and rationalization, and it's all that artificial model, right? But you see it also in education and entertainment and in many facets of our culture, including, I would suggest, facets of our church culture. And I don't think we're here to critique church culture, but you see the left brain in rigid organization and in focused decision making, and you do need the left brain, right? The left brain is what shoots the deer. The problem is that the left brain by itself is it's blinkered, it's a little schizophrenic. Depressed functioning of the right brain is in fact associated with schizophrenia, also with autism, for example. And so the culture becomes sort of autistic schizophrenic, okay?
When you prioritize the left brain so high over the right.
Right. And in religion, right, this is left brain thinking manifests itself. People who are watching are like, what is Dave talking about? We'll get there. We're almost there. Left brain thinking manifests itself as theology, as making everything into a series of explicit statements, right, that are rationally consistent and they're all analyzable, right? And it manifests itself as inflexibility, right? A is true, B is not. Yeah. We don't want to have multiple things that are true that might appear to overlap but not be 100% consistent. Right? It doesn't like uncertainty.
It shorts out. Yes.
We know everything. This is the thing. That is what there is to know. Right? As well as in kind of a rigid corporate type organization. Right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the right brain is sort of, hey, I know a bunch of things that I can't necessarily articulate as propositions. The only way that I can articulate them often is in art. Visual art, it's poetry, it's drama, it's song, it's melody, right? Which are valid and important ways to express the things that I can't write out as numbered propositions.
If I can just throw out there so that it's not like we're not saying left brain bad.
No, 100%.
One thing that comes out of this is like the left brain provides a level of stability that can also lead to stagnation if there's not some right brain room for growth injected. And when they're coming together, that is what helps most, I think.
Yeah. So McGilchrist's sort of surprise bestseller was called The Master and His Emissary. And that's a great book. Read that first. It's shorter than The Matter with Things by about a third. It's about a third the size. What the title means is that the right relationship between the hemispheres, the healthy relationship, is that the right brain is the master and the left brain is a superb servant. Okay? You need the left brain. Without the left brain, you can't shoot the deer. Right? The left brain lets you focus on a task and accomplish it. The problem is if you only have a left brain, you have no context because you don't have all the other things that you're supposed to know. You don't know what things mean. You don't know why you're doing them. You don't have memory, and you're just a task machine, right? So it's important to have both of them. One of the consequences of McGilchrist's research is if you have to pick one, pick the right brain. You can still be pretty functional with an impaired left brain, but with an impaired right brain, that's when you have a real problem.
Oh, interesting.
But yes, it's not to say left brain bad, right brain good, right? It's to say these are two different kinds of thinking, right? Now, why do I say that? I'm going to have Kamron introduce himself here in a moment. I will say this. He is I think it's 8 years in to working on a massive piece of art. And I think we'll have the link in the description, but you can see it at apotheosisscroll.com. You can see 2 panels of it behind us. This is the full-sized piece. 2 panels of what will ultimately be 72 panels. Okay, so they're 8 feet long. So ultimately, this is going to be 560 feet long, something like that. Almost 2 football fields in length of one continuous piece of art.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Right now, it's 1 football field length.
Right now, it's half that. Yeah, 8 years in, and it's about half done. Right, very roughly. Why? What's with left brain, right brain? What, Dave? So I wanted to talk about that as context to say this is an extremely I think not all art. Much of
most.
art is very right-brained. That is the point. Is you're trying as an actor interpreting a role, as a director putting on a play, as a writer of a poem, right? As a singer, as a visual artist. You are in control, but some of the you that is making the art is pieces of you you're not seeing, right? It's stuff that's coming out of you that is the muse, that is the spirit, that is your brain that you can't see. I'm not saying those are all the same thing, right? This is a very right-brained piece of work in that it's massive and it's correlating massive amounts of information and organizing it in a piece of art that I'm going to call initiatic. Okay, it's a way to present in a visual art form a mystery, and I suspect that if we went and pushed on, and so there are like thousands of things in here, astronomical imagery with annotations around them and little images overlaid on the stars to indicate maybe surprising interpretations of what you thought, and there's visual paintings and there's maps and there's all this stuff. And I suspect that if we sat here for 24 hours and went and pushed on things, I think you would have something to say about all of them. But at certain margins, you might not necessarily have a complete explanation for them or say this correlates to that. Or we might find over the course of 36 panels connections that you hadn't seen. Because I think you, the artist, are you're funneling parts of you that you can't see, and or the muse and or the spirit to try to create an experience, right? And in a sense, and I know you've been hearing me talk for like 15 minutes now or something. Hold on, I'm almost there. In a sense, the art in the 36 panels isn't even really the art, right? This is a thing that you're creating that's like a road, but the real art is the experience of the person who comes, because these aren't, it's really telling to me that you don't have these, we're not sitting here in a room with like 14 panels set out in an order where a person can experience them any way they want. It's a road, and it starts at that end, and it goes this way, right? And so the real piece of art is that a person will start reading it and will have an experience with it. And the symbols here, I think, say that this is meant to be a transformative experience, an initiatic experience, a mystery experience that ultimately a different person finishes the road from the one who started it. All right, that's my take. Kamron, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What's your background?
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
But before I forget,
Okay.
some of these great things that you brought. So that was a total surprise, and amazing experience to listen to that, because what you're describing is the finale realization. The project is about recognition. The primary scriptural, it's all scriptural. It's all the scriptures. And my primary scriptural influence is the Gospel of Thomas, which is a what's called a Gnostic gospel. It's not in the canon, but it's the right brain
Yeah.
to the New Testament's left brain. There's a lot of right brain in the New Testament, but what the Western civilization has grasped, has latched onto, is the left brain stuff. This is an organization, that has 12 people in charge of it,
Yeah.
and this is how they go out. This is what they eat and what they wear, and right.
Oh.
That's one way to understand the New Testament. The New Testament is also very not that.
Yeah.
The Gospel of Thomas is further
Yeah.
to the right brain.
Yeah, this is one of the Nag Hammadi texts, right? So it was found in 1945 in a bunch of jars in an overhang in the Nile Valley. Peasants were digging for bat guano. And the story of the Nag Hammadi text discovery is amazing because it's like corrupt local law enforcement officers and bandits, and people are like stealing these things. And but the Gospel of Thomas is. I'm going to super briefly summarize it. Tell me if this is different from your sort of read. It's mostly non-narrative.
It's non-narrative. That
Yeah.
was the thing I was going to mention first.
And it has like a lot sayings of Jesus, and some of them are also in the New Testament, but like others are not. I think one of the famous ones is something like isn't that where it has the logion, the saying of Jesus, something like if you split a piece of wood, I am there, or something like that.
Turn over a rock, you will find me.
Yeah. So on the one hand, people thought for a long time that some people thought that it might be, this is a whole big conversation, it might be Q, it might be part of the source of the New Testament. I think now they would say, hey, the authors of the Gospels had access to information like this. Either they had a book like Thomas, or they knew these kinds of sayings as oral tradition, and they incorporated them into their more narrative account. Is that fair?
Yep. So that's all good.
Yeah.
And so a couple things I want to jump on before I forget are the very good. So I love and agree with everything you said. And so it is initiatic. It is a road. I hadn't thought of it as a road in particular, but it's displayed on these scroll tables.
Yeah.
And I did do a display for the Restore conference last fall.
Yeah.
That displayed the entire 300 feet on 300 feet worth of these tables that I made.
Oh, wow.
And the idea is that you start at the beginning and you go along the road.
Yeah.
And so it's a covenant path, if you will, which has 7 seals of initiation in sequence. And those 7 seals of initiation correspond to the 7 seals of initiation in the endowment ceremony, which is astronomical, which is 7. So the Hebrew word mazarot is constellation, is the same word for ordinance. So when we talk about the ordinances of the gospel, you can say the constellations of the gospel.
Oh, that is fascinating.
And so the restored gospel follows the astronomical pattern that the ancients used. And that's the pattern that I take the initiate on.
Yeah.
And my intention isn't to supply a dogma to the person, but to fire up that right hemisphere of the brain.
Yeah.
The way that I've learned this stuff is one particular example I'll talk about is I was reading an article by Val Larson, an LDS author.
Yep.
And
He's great.
It was about Heavenly Mother. I don't remember exactly the title because he's written several that I've read. And this is some years ago now. But this particular inspiration is what started this whole project 8 years ago. And I was reading it on my tablet, black and white, script on white. And there's a little crude drawing of the family of El, the Enuma Elish, from the Enuma Elish, which is the Sumerian creation.
The Babylonian creation epic. Yep.
Yeah, and it has El, Asherah, Anat, and Baal, which were carved into a cylinder seal, which is technology from around 1000 BC. So you used to, if you were on a mission from your tribe leader, your king, whatever, you had a stamp, a seal that stamped, and you've seen that in the movies, right? Where they have wax and they stamp it, and that says this is closed, sealed by the authority of this person. This is in this person's name.
Yep.
And so that's what a seal is.
Yep.
You break the seal to read the contents, right? Well, a great technological development was, instead of just a stamp, if you put it on a cylinder, you can get so much more data for this tiny little thing, because you roll out that cylinder and it's that big instead of that big, right? And so it's a major innovation to portray meaning in a small space, right?
Yep.
So there's this little tiny seal, 1 inch tall.
Yep.
And it has a carving of that scene that we were talking about, with El and Asherah, Anat and Baal, and they all have bull horns on their head. And it's this scene, and that was somebody's seal, right? And that I've discovered in the process of creating this. Well, let me get to that in a minute. But anyway, I'm reading this article by Val Larson, and there's this tiny little crudest possible drawing, line drawing of that scene. And I'm walking down my hallway while I've got the tablet in my hand, and I felt electricity from the crown of my head just travel slowly down my body to the heels of my feet. And it was just an electric that I had never felt before. And I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
I need to find out what that image is representing. So I've spent the next 6 months devouring everything I possibly could. I had been a reader, a gospel student for my whole life. Since all I've ever done is read this stuff. It's what I'm obsessed with. I think about it. The only time I don't think about it is when I'm thinking about my wife, Bethany. So she'll appreciate that.
Yeah.
But this image sent me on a journey to learn more. And it led me to listen to the Yale courses online, Old Testament. I don't remember the lecturer, 3 times in a row until I understood what she said. Because the first time I didn't understand anything she said. And by the 3rd time through, I understood how that council, how that cylinder seal scene related to the gods of Israel. And then I painted that scene in a 36 by 60 oil painting, full-size oil painting, so that I could get into that scene and see. And in the process of doing a major painting of that scene, I learned about stuff that was in this tiny little carving that you can't make out. But because I researched it, and now I did a full-size painting, and it turns out that painting is inverted. The painting I spent all that time on is reversed.
Yeah.
Because I painted the negative.
Interesting.
Because I didn't know it was the negative, and all the scenes that I have seen of this portrayed are all in the negative. I didn't realize that it actually goes the other direction until I discovered that very scene in the book of Revelation. Revelation 11 and 12 are describing that seal.
The same scene.
Really?
And
for people who are listening, if they wanted to look at this, it's on your website?
Yeah, that seal, that stuff is on a particular page. I don't remember right now.
Yeah.
But if I luck out, it might happen on it. But it's one with a bunch of blueprints.
And again, your website is
apotheosisscroll.com.
apotheosisscroll.com. Awesome.
And so there's a page dedicated to my discovery of this seal, and how this seal is talked about in Revelation 11 and 12.
Yeah.
And how it's describing the constellations.
Oh,
of
fascinating.
The sky.
Yeah.
And so John is describing a ubiquitous, universal, astronomical scene that involves the Heavenly Father, the Heavenly Mother, the Son, a daughter, who is the Spirit, the Shekinah in Hebrew. So it's phenomenal. This stuff's in the scriptures, and you don't know it's there if you don't know the astronomy. And so this project is to teach the astronomy, which is a language. It's the language everybody spoke.
Mm-hmm.
The language everybody spoke wasn't Greek. It wasn't Hebrew. It wasn't Aramaic. It wasn't, right?
It makes me think of the core of a lot of what we believe being in the Abrahamic covenant, and the way that God, when speaking to Abraham, tells him of his promise. He tells him, you will have seed as numberless as the stars in the sky.
Yep.
And in a way, I think that is God telling Abraham that he will become like God. Because what is he gesturing to in all of those stars? All of his other children as well, right? And so I think that there's a lot of depth to what you're saying here, that there is a lot to be understood in this astrological understanding that is more ancient that we may not have access to readily right now.
We've become illiterate. We've become completely illiterate in the universal language that all of the world scriptures were written in.
Yeah, this is super interesting, right? This is we haven't even really gotten to the introduction of Kamron Coleman yet.
We don't have to.
I want to.
We
but
should.
We should.
It's good.
But this is there's a book called Hamlet's Mill by Giorgio de Santillana and Hertha von Deckend, which is a classic from like the 60s, maybe 50s or 60s. And those are serious scholars, a historian of science, and I think von Deckend was an astronomer. I forget. But the book is sort of a little out there, but it's persisted, right? Reprint after reprint. What they do is they look at mythology across lots of cultures. They look at like Susanoo in Japan, and they look at Samson in the Old Testament. So the title of the book, Hamlet's Mill, actually comes from the story of Hamlet, not the Shakespeare story, but the story on which Shakespeare drew, which comes from, I think it's a Danish historian named Saxo Grammaticus, but he includes this story of an Amlethus who had a mill, and it's got a strange name. I think it's the Scampa, and the mill. There's this sort of folk tale, this myth tale, in which the mill falls into the sea and it grinds out salt forever. And it's understood on one level to be an explanation of features of the North Sea, I think. But the argument that De Santillana and von Decken make is that it is astronomical, that the mill is actually the world axis, and the image of it grinding salt into the sea is stars into the rotating heavens, right? So if you go out at night and watch the heavens rotate, you're seeing the action of the mill.
Oh, interesting.
And this is to the point that Cameron just made about astronomy, right? Because as they follow this trail, they say, look, not only is there encoded in the mythology that is written down right as we first get writing, not only do we have specific data on things like the movements of Mars, right? Mm-hmm. The retrocession of Mars in the night sky, or the cycles of Venus, that an individual astronomer in his lifetime could figure out and encode. We have stuff that it's very difficult to imagine a single person in his or her lifetime could observe and figure out. And specifically, that's the precession of the equinoxes, which is a 24,000-year cycle of the slow changing. There's a visible movement of the sun against the background of the zodiac, but there is a slight invisible movement as well, where it gradually, over 24,000 years, moves from one constellation to the next, and it appears in coded form in a lot of ancient mythology. Right?
Really?
Yes. And so this gets to the point of how old is this stuff, right? And who knew it? And the answer seems to be it's way older than writing. And who knew it is everybody, because everybody looked at the night sky, right? And so you get these stories in Japanese myth, and you get them in Egyptian myth, and you get them. The argument is some of them are encoded in the Old Testament, right?
Oh,
and so this was just building on the previous point. astronomy is an old universal language, at least in the northern hemisphere, right? So the southern hemisphere, it's a totally different sky. Have you guys, either of you gone stargazing in the southern hemisphere, by the way?
No,
I certainly have.
Never had a chance.
That's
Of
where
course
I served,
you have.
I served my mission in Samoa.
Oh, in Samoa, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So an island with no lights. I spent much of my time on the most remote island, which is the last place the sun sets on the planet.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And the night sky was unreal. Unreal. No light pollution for thousands of miles.
Yeah.
You know.
Dang. Oh, that's got to be awesome.
So I'm sure that contributed to my imagination on this.
Absolutely.
And that's
But like you say, totally different sky.
a totally different sky. Yeah. So I
When you say a totally different sky, do you mean like, is it completely different? Are there some shared constellations?
There's a few shared.
yeah,
Yeah?
what's around kind of the equator, the celestial equator tends to be shared. So I was going down to Melbourne for the first time.
Yeah.
And I realized, wait, what's the moon like? And I was like, oh, it's a new moon. Perfect. I'm going to be there for 4 days. I'm going to go stargazing. So I Googled on the plane, where are good places to go stargazing around Melbourne? And I got one, right? And so my first day, I got this rental car and I drove like 3 hours, past all of the, like, I kid you not, beware of kangaroo attack signs. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, to this cow town, like 3 hours outside of Melbourne, and I had to steel my nerves at sunset because there's a little forest there, and there's just unholy clatter. I don't know what it was. Came out of the grove at sunset, and I was like, I don't know what animal is making that noise. I just kind of watched the trees to make sure whatever it was didn't come out after me.
Yeah, because
right?
it's Australia, so clearly whatever that is wants to
Right.
kill you.
I've been here like 30 hours. I don't know what it is, right? It's a flying crocodile. It's a platypus attack. I don't know what it's going to be. But it was really disorienting at first because, like, oh my gosh, there's Orion. I said, I must be misunderstanding. I'm not supposed to see Orion. I'm in the northern hemisphere. And then I realized, oh, no. I'm used to looking south and seeing Orion on the ecliptic. I'm seeing him north, and I'm seeing him upside down, but my brain recognizes him anyway and is translating him right side up. And then I realized, yep, Orion, who I'm used to seeing in the far south, is in the far north, standing on his head. And then I could see, oh, there's a little bit of Auriga, and there's like a little bit, but what's south of that is a much emptier sky.
Really?
There are constellations, there are stars, but the nighttime sky south is considerably emptier.
Interesting.
But something like 68, I Googled this yesterday, 68% of habitable land on Earth, so I think that excludes Antarctica, is north of the equator. Right, so most of humanity for most of its history has seen the same stars. That's the point.
Gotcha.
And
Except that prison island.
Except that prison island
Yeah.
where they're all blinded when they arrive.
Yeah.
or you mean?
I mean Australia.
Oh, Australia. Oh, got it. Yeah, got it. Yes, except Australia.
But our literary and scriptural legacy is the northern.
100%. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For
That's
context.
what-
Interesting.
Yeah, Jerusalem's like 30 degrees north or something like that. I could be wrong, but it's a northern. I mean, even Egypt, right? The equator runs south of the bulge of West Africa, right? So like Egypt, Israel, India, these are all north. They have
yeah.
our astronomy, right?
Yeah.
Japan, China, they see our stars, right? The Meso and the Heartlanders, they all saw our stars.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you brought up a bunch of stuff there. So I'm gonna jump on a couple things, and I gotta hit two of those.
Okay, let's
do
do
it. If
it.
I forget one, you got to remind me of the other.
Okay.
I got to talk about that mill.
Okay. Yep.
And then the other thing that you were talking about is what's called the precession of the equinoxes.
Yeah.
Right, on the 26,000 year cycle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not 24, 26.
And so the sun moves backwards through the primary, the zodiacal
Yep.
constellations.
Just a tiny hair at a time.
An amount that you have to be recording this
Right.
over generations upon
Right.
generations to even have it to even
Notice.
to even notice.
Yeah.
And all of the biblical wisdom is pertaining to the zodiacal sign that the sun is in at that time. And so the record is long enough to have stories relating to the age of Taurus, which is several thousand years before Aries, but most of the stories come from the time of Aries, which was 2160 BC to 0. And then we hit the fish, the Pisces, at 0.
Okay.
And that's why you go from the Lamb of God to
The
fish.
Jesus fish.
To fish.
And
Just 'cause
we're
you've crossed that.
now moving into the age of Aquarius?
Yep.
Correct.
Is that? Okay.
So to that point, and what matters about the precession of the equinoxes is there's two places to read that. You can read it in the zodiac with the sun moving through the zodiac, and the other's by the pole stars, which is incredibly important. So the earth is tilted, and that draws a circle with a compass. That's where the compass becomes such an important symbol. It's drawing a circle in the celestial North Pole. Okay? And any time in that 26,000 year cycle, the world has a different pole star.
Oh.
Okay?
Oh, yeah. I remember reading something about it shifting from Polaris to Vega at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And so the shifting of the pole star is extraordinarily important in biblical, in the Bible and in the New Testament. And that's what my work is about.
Interesting.
And so you're drawing this line with a compass, right, around the North Celestial Pole. But there's a point in the very center of that that's never the pole star. It's kind of the pole of the poles.
And there's no star there. It's
There's no
just
star
dark
there.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's a super important point to ancient astronomers. And to have that kind of knowledge that we're going to be rotating from this star to this star, and 4,000 years later we'll be at this star, that's some old knowledge.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
That's completely
And
lost from our language.
How do we know this? That's something I'm fascinated by.
Well,
like, how do
now
we know
it's
that?
easy. Now you can run computer simulations.
Yeah. No, I mean, how do we know that they knew these things?
That's
is
my
it the
that's
alignment of
my
buildings?
hypothesis.
Oh, okay.
I'm finding the astronomical knowledge in the Old Testament, the New Testament, and identifying this is an astronomical story. Here's the stars they're talking about and why it matters.
Yeah.
And my key to that knowledge is the Doctrine and Covenants.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to demonstrate with the Apotheosis Scroll that Joseph Smith was restoring the astronomical knowledge that was had in the 1st century AD and upon which Christianity was based. And so
Whoa.
in the 1st century, we had Greek speakers, we had Hebrew speakers, Aramaic speakers, etc. But statistically, nobody was reading the New Testament. I mean, that was not where anybody was getting the story of Jesus. The story of Jesus was transmitted so rapidly. It was like a wildfire across the whole Western world. And it did not transmit via the Gospel of Matthew. It transmitted because it's a star story. And everybody already knew all the language, all the stars, and the Jesus story is plugged into that astronomy that everybody in the world already knew. And everybody's like, yeah, that's good. That makes sense. That the Son of God, S-U-N, so Malachi 4:2 says the Son of Righteousness shall come with healing in his wings. And it's S-U-N, the Son of Righteousness. So everybody was anticipating the Son that would move out of the age of Aries and into the age of Pisces. And the way it worked is the god of that age, to end the age, the god of that age is killed as the sacrifice to end all sacrifices, and then resurrected as the Son of God in the next age. So the Son of God in Aries is a lamb, right? The S-U-N, Son of God in Aries, is a lamb. You have to kill the lamb of lambs. and that lamb resurrects as a fish. And so Israel is the lamb, is the rams. The Temple of Solomon was built in the age of Aries. Israel was particularly known for its lamb-ram symbols because it got the astronomy right in the age of Aries. And the transition from the familial council of El, with El and Asherah and Baal and Anat, that heavenly council that was on that little seal, that was the representation of God in the age of Taurus. And they all had cow horns on. And Abraham goes to and typical of that age was the sacrifice of the firstborn sons in similitude of the bull, Taurus, in the age of Taurus.
Yeah.
And Abraham goes to sacrifice his son Isaac, his bull, right? And he's stopped by a ram in the thicket.
Oh.
Because the angel says, the age of Taurus is over. We are now in the age of Aries. You don't have to sacrifice your son, the bull.
No.
Lamb is now going to be offered. And for the rest of that age, for the next 2,160 years, lambs are offered as sacrifice in similitude of the lamb. And then to end the age of Aries, you have to sacrifice the lamb, the God, the Son of God. And the whole world is saying, who is this Son of God that sacrificed? And they know, because it was the end of the age of Aries, which is Israel, that it has to be an Israelite. And so they're looking in Israel for the Son of God, and that Son of God is killed as the sacrifice of all sacrifices and resurrected in the age of Aries. And Jesus immediately
In the
finds
age of
his
Pisces.
excuse me,
No, you're good.
goes immediately and finds his disciples from fishermen so that they can catch fish,
Interesting.
the Pisces fish,
Yeah.
and start them on the covenant path. So I could and should go on from there, but I want to hit one thing that you were saying before about the mill,
Yeah.
because the mill is extremely important to this. So Hamlet's mill, they hypothesize, that there isn't a coherent, universal, single story that they could suss out of all this.
Sure. As opposed to someone like Joseph Campbell, who thought every story boiled down to one,
The
a single
Right.
monomyth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm parting down the middle of that,
Yeah.
and saying, as far as ancient temple cultures went, it was one story between all of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know about the stories in Alaska and in South America, but I'm in the Middle East,
Yeah.
in the ancient Near East. It's one story between Persia, Babylon, Greece, Egypt. They're using one set of stars to tell the story,
Yeah.
big story that Jesus flows right into.
Yeah.
And the mill is of incalculable importance to this conversation, because that mill is the pulverizing mill that creates the flour that generates the bread of life. So in the Jesus story, it's a mill story. It's the axis of the world is the mill, and it's grinding, right? And that axis, that plumb line that goes through the world, is represented by the Milky Way, and which we'll get to. But the initiate ascends from being a Pisces fish, the next constellation or ordinance. So the Pisces fish stands for baptism. And the next ordinance of the gospel or constellation of the gospel is Aries. That's the next one you get to. And that means you become a lamb in the covenant. And you're looked over by the good shepherd, Orion, who's the next ordinance or constellation. And then you get to the veil, the tree of life, and where there's the gate that you pass through to the celestial kingdom. It has two sentinels standing as witnesses. and then you pass into the celestial kingdom. And on the celestial kingdom side of the veil is represented by Leo. And so the initiate is supposed to start out as a fish,
So that just
Yeah.
for the benefit of people who may not be following you in terms of
Sure.
astronomical science, what you're talking about is the transition Orion across the Milky Way into the presence of Leo, and the two witnesses are the twins, the Gemini, Castor and Pollux, who are standing above Orion's head. I think is how we see them in the night sky, isn't it? Or they're next to
they're
Orion.
kind of off. So
Yeah.
Brad, you're going to be Orion,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Give me a bow.
And you're going to be so with your left hand, you're holding a bow,
Okay.
okay? But we're not doing the bow right now.
Okay.
So, but your right hand is always up,
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
okay? So, right beside your arm that's always raised, his hand is stretched out still. We're talking about Orion when they say that. Right between you guys, the tree of life,
The Milky Way.
the Milky Way is rising,
Ah, okay.
and it forks into two boughs overhead.
So I'm Leo the lion,
So you're Leo.
or I'm Canis Minor.
You're Leo.
Okay, I'm Leo.
You're Leo today.
Okay.
That's right. If you were down on the
Down here supplicating, I'd be
hoping
Canis
for
Minor.
Brad to
Yeah.
drop a scrap of food,
A
you're
rabbit. Yeah.
right? So, but in this case, the veil is between you.
Yeah.
Now, when you stand here like Orion, you are a fractal of a much bigger picture. So your arm is a fractal of the Milky Way that's right beside you.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you extend your gaze to fill the whole sky, you see the Milky Way making what you can see on a fractal, smaller level on Orion's arm. Okay, and Orion's the one that goes through the veil, and so he's the ascending initiate. Okay, and so the initiate started out as a Pisces fish, a fish in his mother's womb.
Yeah.
Right? He's swimming in salt water. And he's born. That's why we have baptismal symbolism of being born, right? Or being born again. And so you're born, you're a fish in the womb, but once you're born, you're not a fish anymore. Now you're a sheep. And you're a sheep stewarded over by the Good Shepherd. But you're not intended to stay a sheep. Okay?
Can I ask how this aligns with Aquarius?
Aquarius would be the premortal because it's the underworld. So Aquarius is an other world,
Gotcha.
and it's on the very south pole. It's the 6 o'clock position on a clock. My clock is 12 o'clock noon is Leo.
Leo. Okay.
Typically, in modern astrology, which isn't what I'm doing. I'm doing
Understood.
biblical astronomy.
Yep.
I'm not saying anything about.
We're not talking about star sign or your sun sign at all.
Right, and that system has Aries at the 12 o'clock position.
Yeah.
The system that I use from the Bible puts Leo at 12 o'clock at the noonday sun. 6 o'clock position is Aquarius,
Okay.
and both Leo and Aquarius are not terrestrial worlds,
Oh.
and they're where God is. And one of the Psalms, I'm not going to know the number right off the top of my head, but talks about how in the midday you are there, the Lord is there, and in the midnight you are also there. Where can I go that you're not? Because you're at midday and you're at midnight.
Gotcha.
And that's referring to the Father being in Aquarius. That's Osiris. In the underworld is the 6 o'clock position. When Osiris is the god of noonday, he's a
Horus.
lion, right? At noonday sun. And so he's in two different places. He's there at the noonday and he's there at the middle of the night. And so when we are in the presence of the Father in premortality, it's because we're in Aquarius.
Interesting.
And then we're born, right? We're conceived in the mother's womb. We're fish. Now we're a fish in the womb. And we are born, we become a sheep, but we're not intended to stay sheep. We're intended to become a shepherd.
Yeah.
And when you're in the covenant gospel, you get opportunities to nurture, to help, to guide, to comfort, and that's you're being a good shepherd. And you're not intended to stay a good shepherd either. You're intended to go through the shepherd's gate, which is guarded by 2 sentinels standing as witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
You go through the gate into the celestial kingdom.
Yeah.
And there in the celestial kingdom are 2 constellations, Leo and Cancer, the father and the mother. And they are represented by a father lion and a mother lion. I mean, a male lion and a female lion. So a lion and a lioness. And you're in the celestial kingdom. And so if you are Orion standing at the veil, and the veil or the Milky Way is rising between you, you are on the terrestrial side of the veil. Because you're the shepherd, and you have the cattle of Taurus right here, and you have the sheep of Aries right here. That's the terrestrial kingdom. Okay? That's Earth.
Yeah.
But it's in the sky. You cross that veil, you're in the celestial kingdom, which is heaven, which is lions and lionesses. And if you're this lamb that has ascended through all the seals to the celestial kingdom, there's a little constellation right by Leo, and it's Leo Minor, the little lion, but it's also thought of as a sheep, as a lamb. And so that's where the lamb lays down with the lion.
Oh.
And so where the lamb and the lion shall lie down together in the celestial kingdom. So you start out down here as a fish and then a sheep, but you're intended to become of the family of God, which is a lion.
That is awesome. Where do you find all of this information about these old meanings of symbols? Is it just all straight in the Bible, or
The Doctrine and Covenants, section 88 is plain that it's describing this. But the apotheosis scroll is, so the astronomy is a language.
Yeah.
It's the language that everybody knew
Yep.
and knew that no one would ever not know.
Right up until the electrification
And
of
now
the
we're
West
completely illiterate.
blanketed it in light. and
is
made
that
it
what you think it
invisible.
was? Is electrification stopped us, or were we
100%.
we stopped looking at the stars sooner?
Well,
I can answer that.
Gaslight. We got
All right, so-
gaslit from the gas lamps.
yeah, maybe, but I think Cameron, you've got an answer. What's
The
your
light
answer?
the light is important now, but it was lost long before that, because the same signs in the sky that told the world that Jesus had come,
Yeah.
that the Son of God had come, an extremely important sign was about to happen in the year 500 AD, and that's the second coming, which is the shifting of the pole star from the empty space to the Polaris. And Polaris could now be counted as the pole star around 500 AD. And the second coming of Christ is due any day, once Polaris is the pole star. And right now, despite all that time since 500 AD, we are 100 years away from the Polaris pole star being at its exact best center pole position.
Okay.
And it will remain in that position for another 900 years.
Whoa.
And so beginning around the turn of this century to the year
About
year
3000.
3000,
Yeah.
that's the millennium. That's the 1,000 years of Polaris being in position.
As a pole star.
And so, but the thing I failed to mention is that what does the mill have to do with this?
Okay.
Is what the constellations are doing is they're one eternal round, right?
Sure.
And all the time, going around and around and around in circles. And what that cycle is the agricultural cycle.
Okay.
Okay? Planting, harvesting, the flooding of the Nile, the flooding of the Euphrates. It's about the flood that soaks the seeds, that they grow, you harvest the seeds, and you turn it into bread. And then you eat the bread, and it becomes manure that fertilizes the ground. It particularly becomes bovine manure, which is significant, but and then you plant again, and etc. And so what the Gospels are talking about on an astronomical level is the creation of the bread of life. And so the first thing you do to create the bread of life is you save the seed. And all the seeds get saved. Okay? This is the universalist salvation doctrine. Every seed is saved. Some of the seeds get cast out and land on stony ground. Some of the seeds get cast out and land on good ground. And that appears to depend on the individual, right? Your agency.
Yeah.
What kind of seed are you? But everybody's a seed who has been saved. Salvation has been done.
Yeah.
Now you're going to be planted. What yield will you do? Some 20-fold, some 40-fold, some 60-fold, right?
Yeah.
And you will have taken your one saved seed that is you and multiplied yourself into enough to contribute to the flour that becomes the bread of life. And so at best, you're going to produce a small handful of grains, right? If you're prolific, if you're a great producer, you're going to produce a handful of bread. And that's a handful of seed. And that's not enough to make a loaf of bread. Everybody has to be pulverized. You take everybody's grains, you grind them together in the mill, and that becomes flour. And then you get kneaded, you get made into bread, and then you rise, right? He is risen. And we rise from the dead after being pulverized in the mill. And we get baked in the oven. That's the fire. The fire isn't intended to be vindictive to all these sinners. The fire is the fire that bakes the bread. And those who are able to be baked by the fire of the celestial kingdom get a golden crown. And that golden crown is crown on the bread.
Yeah.
It's not, this crown is only a symbol of the crown of the loaf of bread that you've become. And the bread, then, what good is bread? It's not to be put on the shelf. It's to be eaten. If you become the bread of life, then what you want of your bread is for it to be eaten by your disciples. And keep that cycle going. And then you will then produce the next generation. And so you're supposed to become a savior like Jesus was. He's done it. He's gone through the whole cycle. We eat that bread. And then we're supposed to become the bread of life to the next generation. And so the mill is the suffering, is that you can't get there whole. That abundance of grain that you produced is nothing in that form. The only usable form that it has is to be pulverized. And that's why we all have to suffer. We all have to be ground down and pulverized in order to be useful flour that can become the bread of life.
Oh, wow. And I really like the symbolism in here that you're talking about, because it jives so well with what the way that like the gospel interacts with things like power, you know, where it's not like you're being turned into like some stone that is to be set up and high for people to look at. You're being turned into bread, which its power is in service. And I really like that. I think that's very interesting. That's so cool.
And so that's how I see the New Testament, is as a star story that's teaching you how to become what Jesus is.
So let me make a small enigmatic point. And then I want to pull back. I think some people might be going, wait, I thought we were talking about a piece of art. What? Why? What's all the astronomy stuff? And I want to kind of come back up to a high level and put that together a little bit.
Good idea.
Let me make a little enigmatic point. So like the pole star thing is very interesting, because you can think about the pole star Polaris. You know, if you watch this is something you can see in an hour at night. Lie on your back and look north, and you can see the sky turning. Turns like a wheel, right? Roughly 24 hours it turns, and so you can see if you look north, right, you can see the circumpolar stars, the stars around the celestial pole, move in a circle. Okay, as if Polaris is a push pin, or if it were a nail that's sort of holding down the center of the wheel. Turns out that nail is not exactly right, though. Right? This is part of what we're saying. There is a nail in a more accurate place, if you will.
Yeah.
But the nail in the more accurate place is something that requires knowledge to understand. Just looking at it, what you see is there's the nail, the sky turns around it, but with knowledge that you can't originate yourself because it takes centuries of observation, you realize that actually the invisible nail, the nail that is accurate that you can't see, the nail in the more sure place maybe, is actually there in the dark part of the sky.
That's right.
Right? So
Interesting.
So that's just a little connection.
Yeah.
But let's just kind of pull back, right? Because I want to, yes.
I almost think it would be helpful. Tie it back to the art for sure.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like we need to give the audience a solid understanding of where you're coming from with just the night sky and astronomy in general. I think that'd be super helpful. Like when you mentioned briefly that like the Milky Way is the tree of life. I think a little bit of a map of what we're talking about would be very helpful, but maybe after the
well, it's interesting you say that,
art
right?
part you're talking about.
So let me propose some like understandings here, right?
Yeah.
If you look at any given panel of this piece of work, right, many of them have astronomical information on them. They've got lots of stuff. The cylinder from Mari is over there. But like back over here, there's actually Orion and Sirius is on a panel, right? And you've got text and you've got Sanskrit and you've got all kinds of stuff. If I kind of pull back, what I think you're proposing is that there is a mystery, that there is a spiritual inheritance of the human race, and that is very, very old. That, like Alma tells us in Alma 13, 12 and 13, it comes from the very beginning, right? From the very beginning, angels and priests were sent out to teach people, show them the way back. It's the original patrimony of the human race, okay? And that means it existed before there was writing, right? So how do people pass things on when there's no writing? Well, they do it orally, right? And you and I were talking before we filmed a bit about Plato in his Phaedrus and elsewhere complained about the pernicious effect of writing. Plato knew that mankind had long remembered things orally and transmitted them orally, and he worried that that writing things down would result in distortions. You can't interrogate a writing the way you can a living mentor who's giving you something verbally, right?
Oh, yeah.
You
And that
may
our
read it in a
memories would
different
get
tone.
weak. Yes.
Then
You may misconstrue the meaning of a word or a symbol or something.
You
right?
can't understand by reading that paragraph what the person writing that paragraph understood. That paragraph is so distilled down of that originator's knowledge, and the risk of a written record is you've distilled all these things and you've completely lost the context.
Yeah.
It makes
and
me
God
think,
help you if you translate it in another language.
Right.
Because then you have real problems.
makes me think of the scripture, woe unto the learned, for when they are learned, they think they are wise.
2 Nephi 9. Yeah.
And the way that I've always heard of oral tradition as just being like kind of dumped on, as if oral tradition was somehow much less
Obviously inferior.
Yeah, obviously inferior to our written
It's
word.
trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
It's trade-offs.
Yeah.
So notwithstanding that humanity is passing stuff down orally, what it has is the night sky, right? It has, with all of its features, right? the part that never changes, the part that changes every night, the pieces that move against the current very slowly, right? The pieces that disappear and recur, right? There's, and what you are, I think, suggesting with this art is, hey, the night sky was integrally connected to this mystery, this ancient patrimony of the human race. It was it's part of how we remembered, right? It's part of how we passed things down. It was a great illustration. It was our first great book. Is that night sky,
and it preserved its integrity.
Yeah. And even with its changes, because something like the precession of the equinoxes is still cyclical. Like the complexity of Earth astronomy and naked eye astronomy is sort of crazy, and it has enough just sort of perfect coincidences that I like. It alone makes me believe in God. Like the fact that the moon
Right.
is exactly the right size and exactly the right distance from the Earth and exactly the right place that it can cause complete solar eclipses is sort of phenomenally improbable.
Yeah.
Right? Like the moon alone. So
It makes you think that's maybe what Alma was suggesting.
it makes you think. So this is interesting, right? This is evocative of Alma.
Yeah.
It's evocative of Genesis 1, where the lights are put in the night sky to be ot, to be signs. To be tot.
Yeah.
Right? Elsewhere, we're told that people, like the sons of Isaiah or like Cain, are ot, or they have an ot placed upon them, right? So there is throughout this suggestion, or the rainbow is an ot of the covenant that God makes to Noah. Throughout the Hebrew Old Testament, there is this suggestion that there are an ot is the word sign or token sometimes. Things on earth and there are things in heaven, right? And there's this connection between them. And I think it's interesting because you're sort of playing two roles here, okay? And you're stepping forward kind of out of the art in this conversation to sort of give us explanations. Like you're at a gallery and we're here and we have like two panels up, and you can't even see them, huh? And you're like the artist, and you're saying, let me explain stuff. But like really, the art is not a lecture. It's not even an interpretation of the night sky. It is the night sky. It is the night sky in a series of 72 panels that's meant to be, we said this earlier, it's meant to be traversed in an order, right? And it's meant to be, it's not a doctrine, it's not a dogma, it's not a look, join the Kamron Coleman Revised Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? So that's not it at all. Notwithstanding that you're sort of offering some explanation to help us sort of see, and there's plenty of text on here, right? It's not all just images.
But it's not explanatory.
Yes, it's experiential, right?
Yeah.
Like this is, in other words, we've lost the night sky. We forgot what it meant. Electrification hit it all. Maybe gas lamps were the problem, you know. I
just like saying that we got gaslit.
We got gaslit.
Yeah.
My daughter, by this is just, I mean, not really a story. I'm going to brag on my daughter a little bit. I took up naked eye astronomy about 15 years ago, I think, give or take.
Yeah.
Because my dad always knew that stuff, and I felt like I needed to know it at some point, and I always put it off. And then I'm like 35, I started doing it seriously and taking the kids out, right?
Yeah.
It's a great book, by the way, if you want to start from zero. It's called 365 Starry Nights. Fantastic. It's kind of hippie illustrated, wonderful book that goes one day at a time through the whole year in North America.
Sounds
wow.
cool.
Yeah,
I haven't read that.
It is great. My dad had it when I was a kid. I bought a copy. So when my daughter in 6th grade went to the planetarium, and the planetarium worker said, does any, they're in there and it's dark and the stars come and the planetarium person says, are any of you able to point out a constellation? My daughter dutifully waits to give everybody else a chance.
Yeah.
And she says, I can point out some. And so he hands her the laser pointer. And she goes, there's the Big Dipper. You follow the front of the Bigger Dipper, the Little Dipper. There's Draco in between them. You arc to Arcturus, you spy Spica. That's in the hand of Virgo. There's Bootes and the two Canes Venatici. And I think just completely crushed the kid who probably only knew like 8 or 12 herself by going through like 30 constellations in the night sky. Yeah. So, which I wish I could have been there, but hearing it was a delight to me. Anyway, what I'm saying is, although you're offering some interpretations, actually that's not the art. The art is an experience that you're meant to sort of go through, and it's not even that you're meant to, and I'm putting words in your mouth so you can tell me where I'm wrong here. It's not even that you're meant to have your own interpretation. It's that you're meant to have your own experience. And so it's sort of like, hey, given that we don't have the night sky anymore, many of us, this is what I can do in my time to try and capture for me and mine the experience that I think that with my artistic intuition and the inspiration of the muse that I think people were having 2,000, 4,000, 6,000 years ago. Is that a reasonable statement? How much am I off?
That's pretty good. And I think the word, as you're describing that I would look for is language.
Okay.
I'm not supplying a doctrine. I'm trying to teach a language that's been lost.
Yeah.
And what anybody does with that language is completely wide open. But if a person studies this, and I'm hoping 1,000 people study it in the next 1,000 years. Like I
understand.
I would rather have a couple people study this per century than to have 100,000 people slightly interested right now. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to supply what I think is a lost language that gets more lost every 10 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And somebody's got to try to write this stuff down.
And you think this was a language common to people at the time of Christ?
I think everybody understood this language as well as we understand what is behind the golden arches. There's a burger in there.
Yeah.
There's some fries in there.
Yeah.
And everybody in the world knows it.
Yeah.
And we don't have anybody on the planet that doesn't know what that symbol means.
Yeah.
And at that time, everybody understood what these symbols mean, but exactly the doctrine supplied by them was not a correlated supplied doctrine.
Right.
It was so this Christian movement goes like wildfire because of the transmissibility of astronomy.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody here 1,000 miles from somebody in Jerusalem is instantly going to have a different understanding of the Christ. Yet the Christ is going to bear testimony to them that it's true. And so that doctrine is not supplied by the verses in the canon.
Yeah.
It's supplied by the Spirit bearing witness to that person that the Son of God is here. And what does it mean? It means whatever that set of consistent astronomy means to that person.
Yeah.
And that's how the Christian gospel blossomed and spread worldwide. It wasn't until centuries later that it was correlated into a single doctrine.
Yeah. That's such a loaded word, correlated. I love it. In other words, the doctrine's not proceeding out of Jerusalem or out of the Italian peninsula or out of Babylon. It's so interesting because it is correlated in this sense. The stars are the same. Like in all of those cities, people are seeing the same stars. They may make different images out of them, right? But if a missionary comes and is using, I'd love to talk about this, but the image of Orion and Canis Major, minor is Procyon, right? Canis Major, to teach the story of the healing of the man born blind, right? Whatever other image I may have had of that, like that has now been transformed for me, right?
Yes.
And so
Precisely.
what I have is a verbal account told to me, and I have the witness of the Spirit and my own understanding, right?
So when I walk out at night,
Yeah.
I discovered that the story of the healing of the man born blind
Yeah.
is Orion and Canis Major,
Yeah.
and that the man born blind receiving his sight is represented by the star Sirius, which is the brightest star in the sky. It's called the eye in the sky. And it's the brightest object aside from the sun and moon. So it's the brightest object in the night sky. And so I realized that when I saw it in the sky,
Yeah.
and the Spirit said, this is what you're seeing here. And I saw with my imagination
Yeah.
the Lord healing the man born blind, and he is the Canis Major, the dog constellation. And I can't see that anymore without being moved to tears. It takes my breath away every time. But I think that's the kind of experience people were having about Christianity.
Yeah.
And if you read the whole chapter of John 9,
Yeah.
is the story of the healing of the man born blind,
Yeah.
but it's in itself a self-contained ascension text.
Oh.
And the man born blind starts out in Aquarius
Yeah.
and ascends to the constellation Leo through the 7 seals, through the 7 ordinances of the gospel or constellations of the gospel. He ascends them in order in the text
Oh.
with astronomical symbolism. And,
With
and
the washing being like baptism and
yeah,
interesting.
I don't remember exactly how the verses break down right now.
Yeah.
But he ascends through the 7 seals to the Father's throne.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Jews begin at the throne in Leo and descend through the 7 seals to their damnation in Aquarius. And so the story goes like this, with the Jews descending and the man born blind ascending until he has the vision of Christ.
Oh, wow.
And all of the astronomical things are there. And it's a Gnostic ascension text
Yeah.
because the Hydra serpent, which is the serpent in the Garden of Eden, in the story of the man born blind, is a good guy that is the light bringer that brings light to his eye. So in this particular ascension Gnostic text, the serpent is a good guy.
Interesting.
And so
Which we see in other places in Scripture,
Yeah.
like Moses with the brazen serpent.
Yeah.
Well, elsewhere in
yeah.
John, right? John 3, Jesus identifies
Exactly.
himself as the Nehushtan.
right,
Yeah.
right. So it's really fantastic stuff. And so I don't think that someone 1,000 miles away from Jerusalem is getting their testimony of Christ in 80 AD
From a scroll.
from a scroll. They're getting it from this story that they heard about the Son of God that came, and he healed, and they direct you to Orion. He healed the man, and here's how he did it. And they tell you right there, the ascension text, if they know it, right? If they're a hierophant of that mystery, they can tell you
Yeah.
how the man born blind is ascending from the bottom seal to the top seal, and they can tell you how. And so the scroll is a series of me identifying these astronomical stories
Yeah.
and what it means to me, because this has consequences,
Yeah.
right? About literalism, right? And about a fundamentalist literalist reading of Scripture versus loosening that up a little bit and letting it be a little bit more subjective and directed by the Spirit.
And I think the Scriptures kind of support what you're saying. Stuff we were talking about earlier with the like left-brained and right-brainedness
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
can sometimes have. We see the rigidity of Laman and Lemuel when they ask Nephi,
Yeah.
what do these things mean? Are they temporal or spiritual? And Nephi kind of answers,
Yeah.
it's both.
Por qué no los dos?
Yeah, porque no los dos? Nephi just whips out some Spanish. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that there's something important in what you're saying here. That because I don't know, when I approach the Scriptures, I think that there's the temptation in our current society to try to use an evidence-based approach where we are letting our rational mind take over in every way, but not really allowing the spiritual to work its magic in us, you know? And so I think this is very fascinating, the stuff that you're bringing up here.
And yet it's not a free-for-all.
Yeah.
Like it has there are really, like, you can't say that a sheep is in the Pisces constellation.
Sure.
Like, and that's what keeps it organized and keeps it orderly is if you're on Dave's side of the veil over here, you aren't a fish.
Right.
Like, you do not belong in the celestial kingdom as a fish.
Right. It's Leo that's over here.
Yeah.
So this is super interesting. So I want to go two directions simultaneously.
Oh, great.
On the one hand, if you think about this as a sort of hypothesis about history, okay, it's really intriguing to think that the night sky might be used this way because it solves a lot of problems. It allows you to teach people who can't read a written language and in a way they can still remember and transmit. Right.
Absolutely.
It also solves it also means you're not carrying around books. You don't have to be like, here is my library of books to show you this. Right.
Yeah.
There is the book. It's with me everywhere I go. It solves an authority problem, right? So one of the problems that writers in the Israelite tradition have is, if I produce a new book, I want everyone to take it seriously. And the answer of the book writing people to that problem is usually they don't say, I, Dave, wrote this. They say, Moses.
Yeah.
This new book that Moses wrote.
I say, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And this is, but it's not just Moses. Like the first Enoch is probably 6 different books.
Yeah.
Like you read it and it manifestly, you read the first 36 chapters and then it's like it starts over. It's a new book written by, also claiming to be written by Enoch, but they're probably written decades apart. And the people who write them are adding them with this corpus and they're saying Enoch wrote them. You don't have that problem with the night sky. Who put the stars up there? The God did, the gods, right? That's who put the stars up there. That's my authority. Do you not see the picture, the man with his arm raised and the supplicant at his feet? Like this is the story I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So the night sky gives you authentication. So that's super interesting. Let me go the other direction entirely. You don't have to be right as a matter of historical argument for the art to be of value.
Yeah.
Because maybe you're wrong. I don't know. Maybe you're wrong.
That's right.
Right? Nevertheless, what you are building here, and it's a football field long, and when you and I were talking about what are the comps, and there are 2, right? One is the Bayou Tapestry, and we couldn't remember the other one. I don't remember how long the Bayou Tapestry is.
I don't remember.
Yeah, we'll Google it. And, next time Brad's talking, I'll Google the Bayou Tapestry and look.
Sweet.
There are not very many. This is a big, ambitious, almost unique piece of art, which is aiming to say, look, here is the initiatic journey of the human spirit, told with the night sky, with a whole bunch of oblique commentary, hints, guides, other images taken from various mythology
And
or
cultures.
archaeology, different cultures, right? That to be experienced. It is not an argument. It is an experience for someone to go have.
Because something that I love about what you're doing here is it kind of pulls back to a doctrine that I love that we have with the teachings taught to Adam in the very beginning. I think we often will talk about like the great apostasy just after Christ and leading up to now, but I think it's very important for us to remember that there have been multiple apostasies over time. And so because of that, there's going to be all sorts of different kinds of truth hidden throughout all of these different places all throughout the earth.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a cool way to illustrate that through astronomy, showing all of these ancient truths, so ancient they're written in the stars themselves, and how those pieces of truth are still out there everywhere. It's very fascinating. I like it a lot.
So the Bayou Tapestry, by the way, just maybe not everyone knows. In 1066, William the Bastard invaded England from Normandy.
Right. That's
They didn't
awesome.
call him the conqueror. They called him the bastard. He was illegitimate. And he won. Man, it was close. Man, it was close. Harold Godwinson fought a battle defeating his brother and the Danes up at Stamford Bridge, rushed down, fought a second battle, 2 Save the Kingdom battles back to back. He almost won them both. Barely lost the second one, possibly because he himself took an arrow in the head, maybe. And the Bayeux Tapestry tells that story, okay? And so this is, I think it's kept in Battle Abbey, which is on the location. It's called Battle Abbey because it's the abbey that was built where the battle happened.
Yeah.
Right? Senlock was the old name, okay? There's some interesting questions about it because it's clearly made in an Anglo-Saxon style, i.e. the craftspeople, who probably women, who wove it,
Yeah.
were the defeated. But it's telling the story from the point of view of the winners, right? And anyway, it's a big, massive World Heritage piece. It is 70 meters long. This is what I just looked up, which is to say, the Apotheosis scroll is already some 25% longer than the Bayeux Tapestry. And it's only half.
and
And I'm very glad that you explained what the Bayeux Tapestry was.
Yeah.
I thought it was Florida Man.
Yeah.
I thought he had made a
Man, these
tapestry.
Cajuns, those French Canadians that came down south, they wove tapestries.
The Bayou Tapestry. Yeah.
It's all gators.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have a comp, as far as I know.
Yeah, it's a stunning, unique piece of art. This is my point. There are hypotheses about history in here.
Yeah.
You don't have to care about the hypotheses about history. The point is, it's a piece of art. Come experience it, and it's a way to experience not astrology, but it's spiritually experience the movement of the stars and the transformation of the human soul that happens.
In fact, I've been surprised by just how little astrology we have actually touched on. We just talked about the actual constellations themselves.
All you have to know is the zodiacal constellations, and I teach you those,
Yeah.
and Orion,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of stuff about the sun.
Yeah.
But you don't, when Dave described what his daughter knows, you don't have to know any of that.
Right.
Interesting.
It isn't about that.
Yeah.
And it's so, those are things that it's not. But go ahead.
Speaking
Go ahead.
of astrology, just really quickly though, if you know your sign, leave it in the comments.
All right.
And if your sign is what? Let's go with Pisces.
I am actually a Taurus. I do know my sign.
Oh, if you're a Taurus like Dave, give us a like. And yeah.
Yeah. So, we haven't gotten to Book of Mormon stuff yet. It's not about the Book of Mormon. It's not about the Doctrine and Covenants. But there's Book of Mormon stuff in here.
Yeah.
Well, we got sidetracked. I'm interested in hearing that. I'm also interested in hearing Section 88. You made a reference.
yeah.
yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, can we do that?
Yeah.
But in a minute.
Yeah.
I do want to do that.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about what happened between Adam and now.
Yeah.
Because there was suppression of astronomy, because anything could happen at any moment to unseat the powers that be.
Yeah.
And so when rulers had control that was so fragile, right?
Yeah.
They had to suppress this knowledge, because anything could happen in a minute, and all of a sudden everybody's talking about where's the Messiah,
Yeah.
right? And so the Romans did this. The kingdom of Josiah did this, where they
Suppressed
said
knowledge of astronomy.
yes, where they said no more astronomy. Anybody who looks up to the sky gets their head cut off.
Something that you said earlier, talking about it as a language, and then you mentioning it not coming from Babylon, made me wonder if this is in some way related to the story of the Tower of Babel, and the confounding of their language could have something to do with their understanding of astronomy.
Hadn't thought about it in that way, but it most certainly could.
Yeah.
It is interesting to connect it to the Josianic or Deuteronomic reform, right? Where one of the things that Deuteronomy is concerned about is the treatment, is assigning spiritual value to the stars, the treatment of the stars as deities, right? Which, of course, traditionally they were. The title Lord of Hosts is Yahweh of the hosts, Yahweh Tzvaot. The hosts are the stars. They are the heavenly army. They are the angels. They are the lesser gods, right? Who are not in El's court, right? But they are his subjects. And you read like the Melchizedek scroll from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and Melchizedek rides out of the Holy of Holies with that host behind him, right, on Judgment Day, right? And Deuteronomy forbids any of that in worship. You can't have worship, right? It's trying to push them away. It doesn't quite say they don't exist, but really they don't exist because it's Yahweh alone. There is only Yahweh.
We got to go here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the pole star at the time of Taurus, when it was the cult of El, the cult of the bull,
Yeah.
And so this is like, we're talking 5,000.
2160 BC to 4320 BC.
To 43, yeah.
That window is Taurus.
Okay, so we're talking about the earliest times of Egypt, the earliest Hittites,
Yeah.
the Sumerian,
all that stuff.
The very first writing shows up late in this period.
All our stuff.
Yeah.
All our original stuff.
Yeah.
And so the pole star at that time is Thuban. And Thuban is in the constellation Draco. And so we're talking about Norse celestial pole stars.
Yeah.
And Thuban, and so I've identified, and I think I'm correct. Somebody will say, that guy's out of his
wrong.
mind.
Don't
But
worry,
there
it
are-
wouldn't be YouTube if someone was
Yeah,
not saying.
there aren't enough
Yes.
people that are even going to know about it
That's probably
to
right.
and if there's somebody out there that knows enough about it to say I'm wrong, I think they're probably going to at least say it's cool because
Yeah.
they have somebody else to
Sure.
talk to.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so the Hathor is the queen of heaven in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
She's the mother. Isis is also the mother, but Hathor's her mother. Like so
In
this
her
is
most characteristic form, she has the head of a cow.
she's a cow.
Yeah.
Okay? In the Dendera zodiac, which is a zodiac that was in the
Then Dara
temple
was
of-
a temple.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, you can supply background
No,
if
go
you
for
want.
it.
If you
Go
want.
for it.
Temple in Egypt.
Yeah,
Egyptian temple. Yep.
dedicated to Hathor,
Okay.
Yeah.
and it had a mosaic in it, which is a massively important archaeological find because it tells us so much about. So you can identify the zodiac in this mosaic, and at the center of the mosaic is a giant cow standing up. And right nearby to that is a cow leg. Okay? Super weird. So there's this cow leg.
Which looks a lot like the Big Dipper.
It's the Big Dipper, and
Yeah.
they say it's the Big Dipper. So we know that the Big Dipper is the thigh of the cow. Okay? And so I said, if that's the thigh of the cow, where's the rest of the cow? And I pulled out my star chart and said, holy cow.
Literally.
Literally,
Yeah.
that's the cow. You can see the cow. The cow is an amazing constellation.
Huh.
I'm claiming it. I'm saying that's the cow. That's Hathor, the cow. And I named it Bossy for the milk cow on the Coleman family farmstead.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Classic
And
cow name.
that we have a picture of the kids, all my dad and his brothers and sisters all sitting on the back of the milk cow Bossy. And since no one else has done this, I named it Bossy, and I think it was Hathor. And so it's made of three primary constellations: Cepheus the king, Draco the serpent, the dragon,
Yeah.
the red dragon, and the Big Dipper. And the Big Dipper's the thigh of the cow. It's the rear leg. And so these other constellations supply the rest of this cow, just as plain as can be. It's one of the best asterisms out there. Like Aries doesn't look like a sheep.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these things don't look like it.
Right. There's a small handful. Leo does. Scorpio
does.
really does.
Really does.
Oriion's belt is pretty easy
Orion's
to
pretty visible,
see.
but man, a lot of them.
Bossy's a cow.
You really have to stretch to see Cancer.
Yeah, yeah.
Sagittarius
yeah,
looks like
super
a
hard.
teapot, not like a centaur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is you can see this thing. And if you look at my stuff and you find this constellation, it's giant and it fills the North celestial region of the sky. And so the point is, Thuban is the star in Draco, and it's located at the udder of the cow. Okay, and this is why I'm confident I'm right, is because for possibly millennia, the highest, so we're talking about the most high, When we talk about the pole star, it's the most high.
Yeah.
That's the third degree of glory in the celestial kingdom. And so the third degree of glory in the celestial kingdom, the most high was Thuban for a couple thousand years, longer actually, because it was the pole star longer than the sign of Taurus. And it's at the udder of the cow. And what the Egyptians did to signify their highest of all degrees of the celestial kingdom was you nursed from the udder of the cow. And it was also represented by smearing milk across the mouth. Okay? So this pole star moves into the womb of the cow. Thuban no longer is the pole star. And the pole moves into the empty womb of this giant cow where there's no stars. And at that time is when the cult of Yahweh commences, around 1000 BC. And that cult originates in Israel while everybody else is worshiping cows and sheep and all this other stuff. And the Israelite prophets correctly identified that we had moved out of that sign, and that story's all encoded in Abraham and Isaac. And now the Most High is invisible, is formless, and we get Yahweh, a formless God. You go from having a God that's embodied in El and Baal and Asherah and this pantheon of embodied gods, and Israel says, no, that's all idolatry because God is not embodied. And the Most High resides in this empty temple. And so this is where the Deuteronomists come in. That's all well and good until something happens in that womb, right? If there's a comet or something that appears in that empty space, the cult of Yahweh is in big trouble. And that's where the Deuteronomist prohibitions against worship of all these other things come in. And they're right. They're right in the sense that they are the ones that correctly identified that the pole is now in the empty womb and is formless. But the next star that's going to come into position is Polaris, and that'll be 500 AD. So what happens between now and then? What happens between 1000 BC?
And then.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. What happens between 1000 BC and 500 AD is around the year zero, something happens in the womb of the cow, and the whole world goes, the Son of God is born. Or in other words, the golden calf. So the prohibition against worshiping the golden calf is that it wasn't time. That is not, there doesn't appear to have been an event, but they're anticipating the golden calf being born. And Moses is saying, that guy hasn't been born yet. That has not been fulfilled. But it's a clue, it's a Deuteronomistic mystery clue indicating what they were anticipating, which is a golden calf.
Yeah.
And so I assert and believe that the golden calf that sign was given, and that's the sign that the Magi follow. And you don't follow any other star, as Dave's talking about. All the other stars are moving around, and if you go follow one of these other stars, you're going to be going around in circles. The only star you follow is the North Pole star.
Yeah.
And so the star they're following, it's telling you right in the text that they're following the North Pole star. The star appeared exactly where it was supposed to appear, in the womb of the mother cow. And it just had to appear long enough for the prophet astronomers to announce it.
And you're saying that could have been a comet passing through?
Yeah,
Or
any astronomical phenomenon.
okay.
That it could have been a star that we can't see because it's more distant. It goes supernova, and you can see it suddenly for a period of time.
Yeah.
And then it's gone again. And
you're connecting that with the Magi. You're thinking
Yes.
that's sort of
Yeah.
the story of the Magi.
I'm saying the Magi identified it.
Yeah.
They told everybody who didn't see it.
Yeah.
And
Talking about the Magi makes me think about how, again, earlier we talked a little bit about how Abraham was an astronomer. And I feel like some of the ways that astrology has been approached in our modern era makes us like wary of looking at the stars ever. But Abraham was an astronomer. These Magi coming from the east, they were following the stars. Like you said in Genesis, the stars are given for
Alma
signs
30.
to us. Yeah, and Alma 30 as well. There's, I think, plenty of good reason in the scriptures to pay attention to the stars. And I love the way that your art opens your eyes to that. That's super cool.
once you know the language, it tells you that's what's happening. You know,
Yeah.
but you can see why it's suppressed, and you can see why it is de-emphasized and deliberately suppressed, because Rome couldn't. They were on the doorstep of the next major sign, and they're like, okay, we can't risk this. There's no more stars, and that's our legacy through Catholicism, through Protestantism, is we've maintained that bias against astronomy, not to mention that the astronomy continued underground through the Kabbalah and other secret teachings. The Kabbalah became the tarot cards and all the stuff that was vehemently suppressed.
Oh, interesting.
And that's not my work, but it's slightly informed by the Kabbalah. But Joseph Smith was highly informed by the Kabbalah. And so you can see why it has to go underground, right?
What's the there's a line from Virgil, isn't there? Isn't there a story that Virgil tells in like his Georgics or something about a mysterious voice out in the swamp that says Pan is dead? Yeah, is that incorporated in
That was on a ship,
Yeah.
right? There's something about a
because
ship
it's about the time of Christ. Virgil is sometimes thought by some Christians to have been sort of a kind of prophet who saw Christ coming, although I think people typically say, and you might say there's no difference, potato. I think the rejoinder to that, people say, no, he saw the astronomical change from the age of Aries to the age of Pisces coming, and people are interpreting that as prophecy of Christ, right? And to your point, is that might not be a different thing. But I think part of that, there's a story about, there's a ship and it hears of unseen person.
Somebody had a vision of, somebody
Pan
had
is
an
dead.
angel that came to him and said, Pan is dead.
Yeah, Pan being the sort of goat god. Yeah. It's interesting. This is maybe a longer conversation. There's a lot of reason to think that the bull is imagery that's associated with Yahweh.
Oh, yeah.
But that not everybody accepts it, right? There's a there is a title, which seems to be a title of Yahweh, that appears 5 times in the Old Testament. Genesis 49 is the one I remember. I think it's 2 in Psalm 132 and 2 different chapters of Isaiah. But the title is translated in the King James as the Mighty One of Jacob.
Yeah.
But newer translations rendered as the Bull of Jacob.
Okay. Yeah.
And in Isaiah 1, there's a probably related term, which is the Bull of Israel. Again, it'll say the Mighty One of Israel.
Absolutely.
But it's the bull.
So it may not just have been the golden calf put up in Israel was not necessarily only about the like symbol of the tribe of Ephraim, but
Right. So this is actually by the way, also, I think it's 1 Kings 10:22. There's a passage about Solomon sitting on his throne, and it's translated as saying something like the throne is rounded on the top. But actually, in unpointed Hebrew, it could say it's rounded from behind. It could say it's rounded ogal from behind, or it could say it was egel, a calf. And so Solomon's throne may have had like a bull's head, a calf on it. But what this may indicate, right? Like, what is if we think about this as like a historical event, Moses goes up, comes down, they're worshiping a golden calf, right? What sense does it make for Aaron to build an idol to a god none of these people know
And they all pitch in.
And everybody goes, yes. Kind of makes no sense at all. The story makes the most sense if actually the bull is, to some of them at some times, a symbol of the God Yahweh, right? And then some people go along, right?
And
they
you were
did it wrong. They weren't supposed to do it this way. They did it at the wrong time, right?
Yeah.
That's the point of the story. Similarly, when Jeroboam separates the northern and southern kingdom, and Jeroboam puts shrines at Dan and Bethel so people won't go down to Jerusalem, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the sort of historicity of that story is, the point of his shrines is so people in Israel will stay in Israel.
Yeah.
And what does he put in those shrines? He puts calves. Again, if everyone had worshipped the imageless God, why is that going to keep people there? I'm imposing a new God on them. So probably some people, probably they already knew Yahweh as a bull calf.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Right? Similarly, on the Kuntalet Ajrud Pithoi, clay shards from 9th century BC, pottery shards. There's a picture of Yahweh as a humanoid with a bull's head.
Oh, and
it's
this
labeled Yahweh.
And this even fits into like the writing system, right? With like Alpha and Omega. If we go back to Aleph, it's a bull.
Aleph is a bull's
early
head.
on. Yeah,
Absolutely.
interesting.
And so this is a super important point, because we've already talked about how Jesus is Orion, right? And how Jesus is a lamb.
So
And
just
how
hold
Jesus
on. So
is
Jesus is
Orion.
Orion. So in the story, let's just spell this out. So the constellation Orion is standing raising his arm, and Sirius is conventionally thought of as a dog at his feet. But in the reading where that is the story of the man born blind, Jesus is standing with his arm raised, and it's not a dog, it's a supplicant blind man.
Yes.
A man with a characteristic eye.
Yes.
Right? So that's the sense in which Jesus is Orion.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Jesus is Orion.
Yeah.
Jesus is also Leo.
Okay.
Right? How much symbolism do we have of
Of
Jesus,
the lion.
right?
Yeah.
He's also a lamb. Is he a fish?
Yes.
Is he a tree of
The
life?
sign of the fish. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're talking about, these are multivalent symbols.
True.
The Milky Way is a symbol of the veil, of the tree of life, of the water of everlasting life, the highway. This is the felt board
Yep.
that has these things stuck to it,
Yep.
and
Yep.
and so
Brad might not be old enough to know
Right.
felt boards. I am.
when I was a baby,
He doesn't even look at it.
there
He
was a
doesn't know.
technology.
There was a time.
I think I know what you're talking
There
about. I
was a
think
time when the way
missionaries
this
used them at
worked.
some point.
Well, no,
Yeah,
it was
they did early on.
Yeah, but also like primary, or like if you have a felt board and things that you could stick on them. So rather than like drawing on a chalkboard or something, you'd get like a baggie, a gallon baggie, and it would have like Jonah and the whale and the city of Nineveh as different cardboard cutouts.
Oh, and were they like
and you'd
Velcro?
put things. No, they. Here's paper, weren't they? I can't remember why they stuck to the felt. It wasn't two pieces of felt, was it?
It might have been Velcro. I don't know.
It wasn't Velcro, but it was something. It had that kind of effect.
Yeah.
It would stick to the felt.
I think it might have been felt to felt.
Might have been
I
felt.
think
to
felt has enough tooth.
Yeah, I was a kid when this was a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you'd like have it for family home evening. Hey, Matt, do you want to come put Jonah up here and
Right.
put Jonah upside down, right? And you tell Bible stories this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's multivalent.
Yeah.
And you have to tell a lot of stories with the same characters, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in this story, Jesus is a lamb, because we're talking about the crucifixion, right? In this story, he's the tree of life. And in this story, he's a lion. And so when you're talking about what's going on in Josiah's time, they're saying, okay, that's cool. That's super cool that we know that Yahweh is formless right now. But Yahweh is also the bull of God. And Yahweh is also the ram. And the lion. And so, not to mention the serpent ascending the tree of life.
And are these like meant to represent different aspects of Yahweh, or is it just
So it appears to me that what it's saying in Deuteronomy is they're flexing that they know, and that they trademarked that God at the right time. You know, we and everybody, I think, gave them that, you know? And so I just think it was their identification. It was their thing. It was their brand. And so I think that the introduction and integration of the other embodied gods worked against their brand. But everybody understood it. And so, you know, and people can be pretty possessive of their brand. So I would just kind of,
As Cracker Barrel has so recently shown us.
Some people want to destroy their brand, is I think what Cracker Barrel has
I don't know anything about that.
shown us.
So there's a loose end, if
Yeah.
we want, which is what happened to this story.
Yeah.
So we're saying there's light now. That's not the only thing that happened.
Yeah.
There is constant need of the powers that be to protect their brand. And so there's a constant need to suppress anything that might happen and that could happen at any second. Like a shooting star could overthrow the world, right? And so it's like this stable thing as long as everybody's following the rules. But a total solar eclipse or a shooting star in the right place could really mess things up. And so it's hard to preserve that thread all the way through. And I think it's important enough. I've wondered what happened and what's happening now, right? And what is where's the restoration going? And I see all these scriptures, all these stories as part of the restoration. That's my opinion. But I've been extremely struck by these verses in the Doctrine and Covenants.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And that tie-in, I think, makes this a very restoration-specific work of art.
I'm not talking about the church. I'm just saying I'm one of these. This work is intended to me to be pointed at catching fish. Okay? It would be cool if some of the lambs in the church could see themselves as lions. Because you are a lion. You're not intended to stay a lamb. Okay? But I'm not trying to supply any doctrine to the church.
It's just inspired by that doctrine that we do have.
It's inspired me.
Yeah.
It's my major muse. And so it's featured in there.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, but it's up to you guys if you want to summarize this, but I was wondering if, Brad, you might want to read these few verses.
Sure.
Or is it too bad for TV?
No,
But
we've done way worse.
Okay, this,
Yeah.
Brandon will animate it.
this to me is my answer to what happened, and does the astronomy have anything to do with the restoration?
Okay. Just marked in blue?
All the blue, if you don't know.
Okay.
And it's Doctrine
So-
and Covenants
So it's about, like,
121.
5 verses or something.
Yeah, 26 through 32.
Oh.
DNC 121, 26 through 32. God shall give unto you knowledge by his Holy Spirit, yea, by the unspeakable gift of the Holy Ghost that has not been revealed since the world was until now, which our forefathers have awaited with anxious expectation to be revealed in the last times, which their minds were pointed to by the angels, as held in reserve for the fullness of their glory. A time to come in the which nothing shall be withheld, whether there be one God or many gods, they shall be manifest. All thrones and dominions, principalities and powers shall be revealed and set forth upon all who have endured valiantly for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And also, if there be bounds set to the heavens or to the seas or to the dry land or to the sun, moon, or stars, all the times of their revolutions, all their appointed days, months, and years, and all the days of their days, months, and years. Sorry, I thought it was repeating it. It was repeating itself again. Of their days, months, and years, and all their glories, laws, and set times shall be revealed in the days of the dispensation of the fullness of times. according to that which was ordained in the midst of the council of the eternal God of all other gods before this world was, and that should be reserved unto the finishing and the end thereof, when every man shall enter into his eternal presence and into his immortal rest.
Thank you. And so the way I read that is that there was a seal put on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't be until the latter days that seal was cracked open. And so for some reason, I think it's behind a veil. And once we get far enough into the restoration, that seal can be broken and we can start to understand what the most ancient of our ancient prophets knew.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it.
I mean, this is a trick I missed earlier, a point I missed earlier, right? Having your message imprinted on the night sky is that kind of, and man, I think this is really characteristic of Revelation. You have a message that is both absolutely open and thoroughly esoteric. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can go see it. And if the Spirit were to impress upon you the meaning, anybody can receive it directly from heaven, right? Most people, even people who use the night sky, because you can use it for secular purposes. You can use it to navigate. You can use it to know the seasons, right? If you're a sailor or a farmer, won't necessarily see the man born blind healing and ascending to take the place of those who had formerly been the rulers who are becoming blind as they descend, right? So that's fascinating. The historical proposal is very interesting. Even more interesting is the sort of suggestion of this mechanism, right? Even more interesting is that to me is that you're creating it to create for people an experience. You're trying to give people the experience that someone would have had who was taught to understand the night sky.
Yes, and something that we haven't talked about along that line that's extremely important is that in my imagination, according to my study, right, what my imagination has supplied me from all this, is that the ancients, when they talk about the 2 or 3 witnesses, they're talking about a specific thing, and it's not the people that saw the drive-by accident that we always refer to. Oh, 2 people saw it. 2 people say this, so there's your 2 witnesses. I don't think that's what I think that's completely incorrect. We're talking about particular witnesses, and they are the cosmos, the seals of the cosmos, or the ordinances of the cosmos, the seals or ordinances of the body, and the seals or ordinances of the temple. And so our body has the same astronomical seals in it as the cosmos. And the temple was established to teach you, Brad, that your body is a fractal of this cosmos. And you say, how does that work?
Yeah.
Right? Well, that's what the mystery is. And the mystery says this part of your body is this constellation, this part of your body is this constellation, and your body has 12 zodiacal constellations in it. And in the East, they know that the 7 that ascend the spine, right? So that's the chakras. And those are astronomical ordinances. And they don't deal with the 7 seals on the front of the body. So you have a clock, and from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, there are 7 seals. And from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock, there are 7 seals. Okay? 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is 7. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is 7 items. So there's
12 and 6 aren't counted, so it's not 14.
No, they are counted.
they're counted
not
twice.
double.
Yeah.
Got it.
Right? And so what happens is in the East, you go, that ascends the back of the spine to the throne of God. From 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock, you're ascending the back of the spine. But that keeps going, and you descend the front of the body. Okay, so it goes around and around in one eternal round. And and the Christian gospel deals with the seals on the front of the body.
Oh.
And they this might be a little bit too hard to go into right now, but they converge at the top. They share these the four final seals. They converge at the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to show you this, if you can bear with me for just a second.
Okay.
There's a seal on the front and the back of the body that's shared, and it's the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a seal that it pertains to the ears and the mouth. And then there's a seal that pertains to the eyes and the third eye and the forehead. And then there's a seal that's the crown of the head. And these correspond to constellations. And all the rest of the seals of the body correspond to particular constellations. Mm. If you understand that your body is the cosmos, you can't get to that understanding without the temple teaching you how that is. And so you perform ordinances. You perform the constellations in a temple so that you can understand how you are the temple of the cosmos. And so let's just instead of me describing it, let me let our Revelation scripture show you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So again, in section 121 of the Doctrine and Covenants, this is awesome. So Joseph's in Liberty Jail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he begins his prayer. Okay. And he's going to take us through the seals, the ordinances of heaven,
Okay.
the ordinances of the temple, the ordinances of the body. It's all, and he's going to teach us right here what I'm talking about. So it says, how long shall thy hand be stayed? So you know from your study of the temple that the Father is represented by a hand coming through the veil, right? And patriarchs lay their hands upon the head. The patriarch, the father, lays his hand upon your head through the veil and gives you a blessing from the Father, right? So the hand is associated with the seventh seal ordinance of the temple, and in antiquity, a hand reached through the veil and pulled the initiate into the celestial kingdom. Mm-hmm. And in the mystery that informs this work, that hand was a lion's paw. Okay? A lion's paw reached through the veil and pulled you into the celestial kingdom of Leo. Okay? So that the hand establishes the seventh seal, the 12 o'clock position, which is Leo. So how long shall thy hand be stayed? And thine eye, so now we're going to the sixth seal, the eye. Yea, thy pure eye, or the pineal gland, behold from the eternal heavens the wrongs of thy people and of thy servants, and thine ear be penetrated with their cries. Okay, so we're working down the seals of the body. Yea, O Lord, how long shall they suffer these wrongs and unlawful oppressions before thine heart shall be softened toward them, and thy bowels be moved with compassion toward them? O Lord God Almighty, maker of heaven and earth and seas, and all of the things that in them are, and who controllest and subjectest the devil, and the dark and benighted dominion of Sheol, stretch forth thy hand. There's that Orion stretching forth his hand again, right? Mm-hmm. Stretch forth thy hand. Let thine eye pierce. Let thy pavilion be taken up. Let thy hiding place no longer be covered. You know, so we're in the Holy of Holies here. We're in the behind the veil, right? And Cancer's represented by the eye. And Leo's represented by the hand. And those are both behind the veil. That's why we know that there was a representation of the mother on the other side of the veil of the temple. So, stretch forth thy hand, let thine eye pierce, let thy pavilion be taken up, let thy hiding place no longer be covered, let thine ear be inclined, let thine heart be softened, and thy bowels be moved with compassion toward us, and let thine anger be kindled against our enemies, and in the fury of thine heart with thy sword avenge our wrongs. And the sword is the last of those seals, which is the phallus symbol. And so the constellation Orion that has the famous flaming sword, the sword isn't on his hip. The holster of the scabbard of the sword isn't on the side where it would be. It's right between his legs. And so for adult audiences, we understand that between the
Relatively
legs,
few actual children are watching
Okay.
this channel.
the sword is a euphemism.
Yeah.
And the most prolific place in the whole cosmos where stars are born is where? The Orion Nebula, which is in the loins of Orion, at that sword.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
So that's where the seed of God is generated. Okay?
Interesting.
So what Joseph just did is he is talking about astronomy and he's talking about the body at the same time.
Yeah.
That's what we need to understand. That's how the ancients understood it.
Yeah.
And the temple is where you go to perform the ordinances of the gospel, to perform the constellations. And by
Which, as you mentioned earlier, constellations and covenants are the same
constellation
word?
and ordinance.
Ordinance. Constellation and ordinance.
So you perform the ordinances of the gospel in the temple. You perform them. It's a theater, right? It's the theater where you perform what's happening in the cosmos so that you can understand how you are the cosmos.
Yeah.
And
Fascinating.
And so this is my opportunity to tie this into the stick of Joseph, the Book of Mormon. So how are these seals identified in the Book of Mormon? 3 Nephi 11, when the Lord appears. So one more little bit of background on this. We're talking about the seals of revelation. And when one hears the voice of the Lord, that's the telestial level of revelation. To see the Lord is an exponentially higher degree of revelation than to hear the Lord speak, right? And that's a terrestrial level of revelation because the terrestrial, the eye is associated with the mother and with the terrestrial kingdom. And so the highest degree of revelation is to be embraced or to have contact with the Lord. And so when Jesus appears in 3 Nephi 11, which we should read instead of me describing, but they hear the voice of the Lord and they can't hear it.
They can't
yet.
understand it, yeah.
And it takes the repetition of 3 times Jesus speaking before they can hear it. Okay, now they've heard it. Because that seal is third from the top. Okay? And so Jesus repeats it 3 times, and now they have ascended through the 5th seal of 7. And then they see him. He appears to their vision. Now they have ascended to the terrestrial world, the terrestrial kingdom, the 6th seal of revelation. They have now had vision of Christ, which is an exponentially higher level of revelation. And then finally, he comes to them and they touch him, and he touches them with their hands and with his hand. And that is the 7th seal of revelation. They've been exalted. They've received revelation. They've come into the presence of the Lord by being drawn through the veil. And then, if that's not enough, they get surrounded by concourses of angels and children, just like the pole star is surrounded by circumambulating
Oh, wow.
Angels.
Yeah.
and children. And so they've gone from having their hearts broken, right? They're having this destruction, to exaltation, and to the highest degree of the celestial kingdom.
Yeah.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg, you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, And so Joseph
I mean,
restored.
we've talked about maybe one panel of the 72.
We've touched on a few, I think, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I feel like if you were to sort of try and chart this conversation, we could sort of do this, where we keep. I'm not complaining at all. Like just to sort of comment on what you're hearing. We're talking on the one hand, let's talk about kind of astronomy and some observations about astronomy, and then we'll dive down and be in. And this is the fractality you're talking about. Like a fractal is an image or is a design that repeats itself at all levels. So you zoom out and you're still seeing the same fractal, and you zoom in and it's the same fractal. And so, you know, we're talking about the human body. We're talking about ordinances and in the human body. We're talking about, you know, the Book of Mormon accounts. We're talking about letter from Liberty Jail, right? We're talking about, you know, the circumpolar stars and the asterisms you see there, right? So I think one impression a viewer might have is, wow, this is big. And I'm, in fact, sort of struggling to comprehend it all, right? I think that's a reasonable reaction
Yeah.
you're having right now.
Yeah.
I think if you feel like, wow, there's a lot of stuff being said, by the skin of my teeth I'm holding on, yep, that's it, right? And the art is only half done. So, and in fact, I think we should expect that it will be years before the art is completed, right? And then it's going to be about 2.4 Bayou tapestries long, right? If you are looking when we're at the pulled out central camera, you can see that the art is incarnated behind us in a scroll. What's back here is one panel plus about 2/3 of a panel on this side and about 1/3 of a panel on, not even a third, like a tiny sliver of panel on that. This is like almost 2 panels here, right? So envision that like it's 20 times this long now, and it's going to be twice that. I wonder if it would be interesting to just look at one panel. I don't even want to say do a deep dive, but like as an
A
example.
little bit of a walkthrough.
Say like, well, what am I actually going to be seeing?
Yeah.
Right? And we pulled this one to the top. I'm not saying it has to be this one, but we pulled the top because you started with the Mari seal cylinder, and that's on this one. Or maybe we could start with or we could look at the one with Orion as Jesus healing the man born blind. Or what do you think, Cameron?
Well,
is there one that'd be interesting to sort of show and look at together?
Yeah, let's do this one. The reference the Mari cylinder seal, because that. So it's what number there? Do you see? So that
18. I think it says 18.
The viewer can look at this on their computer at their leisure.
This is a good point. The
And so apotheosisscroll.com, you would find number 18, and you can zoom in on it and look at it on your computer at your convenience.
Okay, awesome. So I am now just a forehead, which is all I ever aspired to be. So mission accomplished. And I am looking on my phone at apotheosisscroll.com, and I've scrolled down to image number 18, and I'm zoomed in. I'm looking at the Sanskrit across the top.
So we've just set up the box that I made to be able to display the panels on paper this way. And so I'm referring to it on my phone, which is on the website apotheosisscroll.com, that has every one of the panels that's finished that you can click on and look in at all the resolution that you want. And so we reference this panel very early on in the discussion, and it's about what was called the Mari cylinder seal. And I'm not going to talk at all, I think, about what's on the left-hand side. I'm going to focus on this blueprint in the center and the astronomy on the right-hand side. This is super fundamental to gospel astronomy. And so in the Apotheosis scroll, there's a lot of blueprints. And the blueprints represent me capturing an idea in my imagination that I don't know what it is. And I'm going to then research from there. And so I saw in the middle of that blueprint, there's a little drawing in the middle, and it's kind of a rectangular shape, and you can see this crude line drawing of these 4 figures, and it's just their outline. And then to the right of that rectangle, there's a little cylindrical object.
Yep. So that's the seal, and it's showing you that if you ran the seal over wet clay, the image it would leave behind.
Yep. And that this seal was only 1 inch tall and had all that data in it. Okay? And
the 8-pointed star is a very old symbol of a divinity in the Near East. Back to Sumerian, I think it's in cuneiform. I think it's like a logograph, like it's a divine name is written with that 8-pointed star.
yeah, that's Anu. That's the god. That's like, and I think that there's 2 of them because it's reflecting what I already talked about the Father being at noonday and Father being at midnight.
Ah, and they're in those 12 and 6 positions.
Mm-hmm. Someone who actually knows can correct me on that. And so what happened was I was walking down the hallway. I saw a little line drawing like that in Val Larson's article.
Yep.
I had no idea what that's talking about.
Yep.
And I had this bolt of electricity from my head to my feet, and it was prolonged. It was like an experience I had never had anything like before. And I saw that little image, and I said, obviously, I need to find out what that is. And I spent the next 6 months or so trying to find out what it was. And my main resource for learning about that was to listen to the Yale Courses Online lecture, which is many hours of lecture about the Old Testament. I think it's by Hayes, a woman whose last name is Hayes, that puts it on. And it's really good. And it's not a thrill a minute. But I listened to it 3 times in a row until I understood what was happening there. And soon after that, I was compelled to paint this scene. And so I pulled out a canvas that's 3 feet by 5 feet, 36 by 60 inches, and I did a full scale oil painting.
And that's over on the right.
Yes, with a twist. But yes, that's exactly right, Dave. And I painted it as it's shown in that rollout in the blueprint. But as you can see to the right, that's the mirror image. So the seal, as I always saw it, as I was researching, it was actually the negative. Okay, so all of the images online of this seal, which was held in the British Museum, they were showing the images negative. Okay, because it's rolled out onto clay, like you said. So one of those is a positive image and one of those is a negative image. And so I had been studying the negative image. And so later on, I realized that whole oil painting that I had done was the negative. And so over the course of my study, so what happened next, after I did this oil painting, so I've spent a bunch of time now getting into this little seal, and I'm realizing and identifying little details that I never saw. Like if you see the drawing in the upper center part of that blueprint, you can see that Asherah, the female on the left, is holding a menorah, and that El is holding a staff that has a serpent ascending it. And that was supplied by other research I did. I was able to fill in that gap. The menorah is actually on that cylinder seal. And in that little tiny cylinder seal, El is actually holding a staff. And you can see that Baal has a rod of iron, and that El, the father, is sitting on a throne on a mountaintop. And the 2 male figures...
In a garden.
In a garden, absolutely. The 2 male figures have... what are the kind of trees that don't have leaves? Evergreen type trees,
Oh, yeah.
Cypress trees. and
their heads?
on their heads.
Yeah.
All of the figures are wearing bull headdresses. So all of the figures are bulls, right? So in that cult of El, that bull sacrifice worship. And the female on the right is holding a laver of water, and her headpiece has a leafy tree. What is that? A deciduous tree?
Deciduous, yeah.
And then the other female figures is a stylized deciduous tree into that Hebrew letter, which Dave will know, and I don't remember.
Semic.
It's a scene or a sheen.
Oh, sheen. I always mix those up.
Samic looks like an O.
And then
Yeah,
what's super cool,
It's the other S.
Yes. Yes.
yeah, so what's super cool here is that these females have these gowns that are in water. That's weird. And they're both of them have behind them a tree or an Asherah. One is barren and one is fruitful.
The
And
trees.
yeah, and that's all over the scriptures, and in the Gospel of Philip, for example. And then, fascinatingly, there's this serpent under the throne of the Father that has water gushing out of his mouth. And then there's this dove-like figure that also has water coming out of its mouth.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had just painted this. So I've put a lot of time into this silly little thing by now, and I have no idea why.
This is this is 8 years ago you're doing this.
Yeah, I'm going to say this is really early on.
Yeah.
And I happened to be reading the book of Revelation one day, and I see in Revelation 11 and 12 that he's describing this scene to the letter. And it talks about the serpent casting the flood out of his mouth. And it talks about the earth swallowing up the water that the serpent cast out of his mouth. But I'm not going to go over that now because we have a lot to do. But if you wanted to, you could study this blueprint and see these verses in Revelation 11 and 12 and how they correlate or correspond to this seal. It's as if John is sitting there looking at this seal in his vision, because his vision is of the sky, right?
Yeah, there's so much to be said here, actually.
Before you do, can I finish up one more
of course,
important
my
thing,
goodness, sure.
so that if I forget this, it would be bad.
Okay.
But it took me 4 years, 5 years, I don't know, to realize that I had that image inverted.
Mm-hmm.
Because that image is not astronomical in its negative form,
Interesting, because it has the night sky in the wrong order.
in the completely backward order.
Yeah.
And when I realized that this was who these astronomical figures were, then I realized that it was inverted. And so you can see how I took that painting on the right-hand side over here, and I draw these golden threads that tell you which constellation
correlations.
is being represented in this figure. And so this is consequential, because it means that John's revelation is a revelation of the heavenly council, the familial heavenly council, and that it's astronomical. And so this becomes a key or a cipher to the whole rest of the stuff. That's all I have to say.
I mean, two things. One, there's so much to say about the menorah. My goodness, and I've said many other things in other contexts, but let me just point out that it is it has astral connotations. So the menorah is a central axis, and from the perspective of earthbound observation, the Earth has an axis, and it is perceivable from standing on the Earth looking at the sky. It's the thing that wobbles and chooses different pole stars, right? So
Yes.
it's, this image appears in like the ladder that shamans climb to get out of their yurt when they leave their body, or Yggdrasil, the world tree in old Scandinavian stories. The world has an axis. It connects worlds above and worlds below. Also, the number 7, we haven't talked about this, but it has a night sky. It probably has more than one, but it has a pretty, at least one pretty obvious night sky referent, which is that the way we learn planets in school today is not the same way. The meaning of the word planet has changed.
Yeah, and they got rid of Pluto.
Planet,
Yeah, they
So
did.
messed
also
up.
Brontosauruses. No, Pluto was not a planet anciently. Anciently, planets were not things that orbited the Earth. Things were not understood to orbited the sun. Things were not understood to orbit the sun. What were the planets? Well, the planets were, if you look at the night sky, and if you just observe for a few hours one night, okay, what you seem to see is almost everything moves together. It's that nail up in the north. Everything is spinning around it, and it holds consistent. Each star holds a consistent relationship to the others as it slowly moves. Right. That's what it appears. Now, by the way, if you observe long enough, you actually, some things are like Bernard's star, I think, is the one that's moving fastest. It's moving fast enough that in your lifetime, over the course of 70 years, you could notice that Bernard's star is moving. But just looking at the night sky, it's all fixed. But there are 7 things that are not fixed that seem to move against that background. And those are the planets. Planao is to wander in Greek. Planetes is they're the wanderers. They're the things that wander.
Oh.
And there are 7 of them.
Yeah.
And they are. And they have to be visible, so, Pluto is not a planet. But also,
Blasphemy.
Uranus is not a planet either.
Blasphemy part 2.
I know. So what are the planets? Mercury, Venus, not Earth. Earth is not, we don't see Earth up in the night sky. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, the Sun, the Moon. In
that order.
Yeah. So these are the 7 planets, and one of the many things, because these symbols are multivalent, one of the many things you can see when you look at the menorah, which is also the tree of life, which is the cosmic axis, is the 7 visible planets. It's also, my friend Rob, the Sephirotic tree, right? There's a lot going on there.
Oh, interesting.
So, but also something in this image, what's striking to me, and I would be interested to see an impression of the original seal to see how much this looks to be the case in the seal. But the menorah, as it's drawn here in the hands of the goddess, kind of looks like it's a stack of 3 bullhorns. Right, so that's interesting because what that sort of says. Notwithstanding, we have 4 divinities here. That sort of suggests something like a triune God, right? Like there are 3, right, divinities expressed in this axis.
And the other's the Shekinah, the spirit.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Boy, that's a big conversation. We probably won't get to that, but that's
so
super. That's
sorry.
No.
You say it.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's super interesting. We're probably not going to get. We're already like 2.5 hours in, I think. But another example of just interesting stuff here is the way this is El's palace. This is El's mountaintop and garden. He's holding this staff. Why is it interesting to me? Because of the multiple ways in which it's reminiscent of the story of Moses. So Moses goes up on the mountain and he encounters the burning bush, and the bush says, "What is that in your hand?" And Moses says, "It is a rod." He doesn't say, "It is my rod." He says, "It is a rod." That's awesome. And one reading is that someone else has just handed it to him, which is astonishing because later in Exodus and Numbers, it is referred to as the Mateha Elohim, the staff of the Elohim.
That's awesome.
So
In the plural.
which means it sounds like Moses is given a staff in encounter with the burning bush. This is also the same staff that when he goes to fight Yanes and Yambres, the sorcerers in Pharaoh's court, he and Aaron throw their staffs down, they turn into snakes. Right? This is also the same staff that in Numbers 21, when people have been bitten by snakes, and Moses says, "What do I do?" God says, "Put a seraph This is what Numbers literally says. Put a seraph on a pole. And Moses nails a brass serpent onto a pole. So this is how we know that a seraph is understood by the ancient Israelites to be a serpent, right? So it looks like we're remembering from 4 different angles the fact that Moses, a man who went up into the palace of El, came away with some kind of a symbol of power or authority, or a vehicle of power or authority, and it was a staff with a serpent on it.
Dynamite.
Yeah.
Dynamite. And then while we're here, this is really fundamentally important. The women with their gowns in the water. Okay.
Yeah. Are they flowing out of the water? What's going on
So
here?
the tree of life, I'm going to tip it back up for just a second. So that the viewer, if anybody's watching, can see this. So the females have their gowns in the river of everlasting life. But if you look at my drawing in the top right hand here, the tree of life I always draw as a tree whose roots are water.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because it's a tree while it's a river. And so I'm trying to always convey that.
Uh-huh.
And
This is super interesting. Okay.
okay, yeah, it is, right? And so just a second on that. So I want you to
Yep.
be able to be seen when you make your comment.
Okay. I like being a forehead, though.
Yeah,
What a fine forehead Dave has.
it is
No
good.
hair, but
I like it. It's good. And so, but notice Gemini here, the letter E.
Yeah.
That's the 2 females standing in that water.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're also shoots off of the olive tree. Okay, so this tree of life, this Milky Way, is the olive tree. And so they are the 2 olive tree witnesses. Okay, they are the olive tree. They're the shoots that you can just, with an olive tree, you can just pluck up a shoot and stick it in the ground and it grows. And so that constellation, the feet of that constellation are in the Milky Way. And that's what's being represented there. And so there's a lot of opinions about who the 2 olive tree witnesses are. And Philip says in the Gospel of Philip, they're the bride and the Spirit. And in the end of Revelation, it says, the bride and the Spirit say, come, partake of the tree of everlasting life. Those are the sentinels at the gate. But of course, it's not only them.
Yeah.
Right? These are multivalent symbols
Interesting.
that are used over and over and over. So if you're telling the story about 2 other olive tree witnesses in another context, you can certainly use the constellation Gemini to represent that.
Some other symbol. Yeah.
But we're talking originally about a heavenly council involving males and females that perpetuates all the way through the Old Testament and all the way through the New Testament and all the way into Restoration Scripture.
Yeah.
And
kinda
it's the astronomy that supplies that knowledge and doctrine.
Yeah. I don't think that this is inaccessible without astronomy, but I think that it will help somebody to understand what's going on. Although understanding in a Western sense is not the goal. It will enhance your experience the more astronomy you know. And the multivalence is clear. We talked about Orion over here. We've talked about Gemini, 2 different things. Elsewhere, we've got, I think right here, we've got Orion as a different figure entirely. And on another plate, we've got Orion set up as Prometheus. Right?
Absolutely.
And you have to embrace the power of and. The sort of multivalence of symbol means a symbol can mean more than one thing. The women flowing out of the water is super interesting. At Ugarit, one of the titles of Athirat, which is Asherah she's the wife of El, and she's the mother. They're the mother and father of Baal and Anat.
Yes. That's what this scene is depicting.
Yeah, one of her titles is the Lady of the Sea, which is super interesting because that also seems to be the meaning of the name Miriam. Yam is sea in Hebrew. Miriam is the Lady of the Sea. Miriam is the sister of Moses. Miriam in Exodus 15 leads the women Israelites in an antiphonal response song and dance to the male Israelites who were led by Moses. So she seems in that moment to be his peer. She's elsewhere described as the prophetess. And of course, Miriam is Mary. So so Jesus is born to a woman who's named Mary. This is something that the Gospels all tell us. Actually, John doesn't tell us. The others tell us that. But also there are multiple. There's a multiplicity of Marys in the New Testament. Right? So it's this name is old and resonant, and resonates with this image.
Home run,
with women
Brother Dave.
connecting with
Home
the
run.
water.
Home
That
run.
is fascinating.
That's exactly right. And
Dude.
more than that, so what you need to understand when you see this image
Yeah.
is that these two women are being represented several times on the other side of the veil. Okay? So they're being represented as Gemini by their feet being in the river.
Okay. Yep.
But
Because so let's explain
Yeah.
that. Because if you look up in the night sky and you look for Gemini, they are there with Orion. So Gemini is a constellation. It's one of the ones that's fairly discernible. It looks like more or less like what it is.
Yes.
And it looks like two stick figures with their arms around each other's shoulders, and they're there with Orion right on the
Milky Way.
yeah,
Milky Way.
Orion's on the terrestrial side of the veil.
Yeah.
And they are on the celestial side of the veil.
Yeah.
The veil being the Milky Way.
Yes.
Yeah. Also being the river.
Also being the tree.
The tree.
And the highway. And
the
so
axis.
and yes, and the umbilical cord. And right.
Yeah.
And so what's really, I'm so glad we get to say this,
Okay.
is they are Gemini.
Yeah.
When depicted as Gemini, as they are in this scene, by their feet being in the water. But one of them is Cancer, the consort to Leo, the consort to the Father. And one of them is Virgo, the Virgin. And so they are seen in a couple of different aspects in this one scene. That's how economical this scene was
Yeah.
in Sumeria. And so you understand that in the fifth seal, which is this seal of the mouth and the ears, they are the ones that invite. They're the ones that speak. They're the ones that correlate to the revelation of hearing and speaking. But the next ordinance that you get to is one of them is married to the Father,
Yeah.
and one of them is the Spirit. And so you have to let your imagination just let loose a little bit and say sometimes these things, because this Orion figure over here on the terrestrial side of the veil, well, he becomes Leo. And so he becomes the Father sitting on the throne. So he's also two people at one time. Okay? And so in my opinion, some of the initiatory language that distinguishes men from women has to do with this, that the women are already on the other side of the veil,
Super.
so to
interesting.
speak.
I hear what you're saying. So this idea that, in other words, the language that men can become clean, but women are clean. And your point is that's not actually, maybe we should not understand that as an actual reference to the behavior you need to live up to in this life. Maybe we should understand that as a reference to an astronomical scene, to an archetypal scene, and to the role of our Heavenly Father and Mother in sort of that scene as we enter it.
Precisely. Well said.
Interesting.
And then because Cancer, all life proceeds from the constellation Cancer through the veil to the terrestrial kingdom. So the veil is the veil of the woman
Because cancer is behind Leo, or no, cancer's in front of Leo.
in front of Leo.
In front of Leo, it's right next to the veil.
Yeah.
It's right next to the Milky Way. So you're saying life comes father, mother, and then goes
The sun.
Yeah, son.
Is who is born
On the
through the
other
veil.
side of the veil. Yeah.
And the tree of life is the woman whose veil is parted to give birth to the son.
And the son is the one who has come out of the veil.
Yes.
Yeah.
And returns to the veil on his ascent back to the celestial kingdom.
Yeah. I have a question for you. And the answer might be, I don't know, Dave. Probably we ought to wind up pretty soon. I suspect we're going on about 3 hours now. And I have a selfish desire to keep going, but it's felt like I'm glad we looked at this one panel. We didn't even look at the left side of it. We just looked at the right side of it, and we didn't even read the words. So we looked we didn't look at the Sanskrit, right? So
Yeah, I've wanted to ask about the Sanskrit the whole time.
This is a pretty good rendition of the Deva Nagari script, though. I like it.
I can hit the Sanskrit super quick. The Sanskrit is recurring through the scroll. It's the same statement every time. And it is those who choose knowledge will choose against comfort. And those who choose comfort will not choose knowledge. I didn't say it right, but you got the idea.
Yeah. Interesting.
And so it has to do with the war in heaven, and that it was acknowledged that to choose life was to choose something
Discomfort.
extremely hard.
Yeah.
And
Back to the mill
yes,
we talked about.
And so you're choosing to be ground down into powder.
Yeah.
That's what you're choosing here, and that's the right choice.
Yeah.
Because the key to the kingdom of God is knowledge. And you cannot get that knowledge any other way. That's the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is this story. The story of the Garden of Eden is this diagram I'm showing you right here. And that's I show you that in the work, but that Garden of Eden that Dave talks about as being the celestial kingdom, this scene is the Garden of Eden.
It's the mountaintop with the trees and the throne.
And is being cast out of the Garden of Eden through the veil to the terrestrial kingdom, which is earth.
I think I don't even have a question. I think I have just an observation. I'm just going to make the observation, and you can make of it what you will. So I'm interested in this idea that one reading, right, like one scene that can be constructed out of Gemini, is that it's two women, and effectively it's your wife and it's your mother, who are there to welcome you at the veil. They're there at your birth in some sense. Maybe they welcome you back. They're welcoming you to the tree of life, right? There is this super interesting. I'm often struck by how there are high level things about the scriptures that when we notice them, we go, oh, that's odd. Here is an example. Okay, if you were an alien, you arrived from Alpha Centauri,
Or a Canadian.
or if you were, let's say you were a Canadian,
Yeah.
and you'd never heard of this Abrahamic stuff at all, because you're up there eating poutine and playing hockey.
Yeah.
And someone handed you the four Gospels, but that was it. And so you got to sort of construct your understanding of what's going on just out of the four Gospels. Okay? You would say, and you're not ignorant. You can figure out Greek and Hebrew, okay? But like you just have the four Gospels. You go, here is this guy, all right? And in all four Gospels, he is referred to as the Messiah, which means the anointed one. And in all four Gospels, we see him being anointed. And in all four Gospels, who anoints him? A woman. You would say being the Messiah has something to do with being anointed by a woman.
Absolutely.
Now, if you had Acts, Acts says he's anointed by the Father. Okay, but if you just have the Gospels, your understanding would be that the nature of Jesus' being or calling or his messiahship somehow required him to be anointed by a woman. And the scenes are a little different. They're not all the same, and there's little glosses over them, right? So we get into this idea of the multivalence of symbols. But it's really interesting to me to sort of think about Jeb and I as women who are liminal. They're guarding the transition, right? They're also inviting. So they may stop you or they may bring you in, right? If you are eligible, if you are worthy, if you are maybe anointed, right? So anyway, that's not a question.
That's right.
That's a thing. But I think we should probably wind up because I do think we are.
But that's how I understand what I'm presenting as well.
Yeah.
And so there's two anointings.
Yeah.
There's the anointing that you have potential to become a king, right? And that anointing happens when you're a child, right? And there's a second anointing that is what confirms you. That's not the word I'm looking for, but ratifies that first anointing by getting married. And that marriage union is, without that, you cannot ascend to the throne. And so this whole thing is about marriage.
Absolutely.
The whole thing's marriage.
Yeah.
And there's a pair on the other side of that veil. And the whole story is about the female having to, we've kind of established, so just to clarify it, is there's this Milky Way rising up from the horizon. Everything to the right-hand side of the Milky Way is the terrestrial kingdom. That's where the shepherd is, the good shepherd, with the cattle and the sheep.
Yep.
And then the celestial kingdom is spirit and is on the left-hand side of the veil. And that's the kingdom of Leo, which is where the father and mother married and jointly rule. Okay? That's the story. And so what happens is the fall is a way to explain how the mother, got separated from pater, father. And the story of Adam and Eve says, here's pater, the father, that's spirit, and here's mother, mater, matter, that's matter. And explains how we have matter and how we have spirit. Explains the separation between man and woman. The whole story is to get those two unified again on the other side of the veil, to make the mater and the pater one again. And that happens every day in human life. It happens year after year, cycle after cycle. The whole story is getting mater and pater reunited on the celestial side of the veil. And it's the whole story of how mater and pater are continually divided by spirit and matter. And Joseph talks about spirit and matter making the human soul. And so we are this combination of mater and pater. You are mother and father in one, in you. And you are mother and father in one, in you, on this side of the veil, in the terrestrial world. And there will also be that unification on the other side of the veil. And so it's all about getting those two reunited. And so the gospel is continually talking about two things happening at the same time. There's this terrestrial kingdom and there's this celestial kingdom. And we are creatures of both.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And then to close a loop about the left-hand and right-hand side of the brain. So the left-hand side of the brain is the terrestrial kingdom, right? It's the world. It's the concrete. It's matter, right? It's the hard reality of matter. The right hemisphere of the brain, which is ruled over by Leo, is the spirit, right? And on that spirit side is where things are mother and father at once. And so the missionary sections of the Doctrine and Covenants that everybody's memorized and that we know so ubiquitously, these are Section 4, 11, and 12 are the missionary sections, and they are astronomical. And they're talking about the field of the terrestrial world being harvested, and it's an astronomical representation of the right hemisphere of the human brain. And we can't get into that today, but it's on one of the panels.
Oh, that's fascinating.
That's not kindergarten level. That there, you have to learn the language to understand that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm curious, because you've mentioned a few times the right hand and the left hand. Which direction are you facing when you're looking at the sky?
So yeah, that's a super great question. So it's all referencing facing east.
Okay. Cool.
So like
our temples and everything.
Yeah, the prophet is standing on the porch of an east-facing temple, looking at the Milky Way rising from the eastern horizon and dividing overhead. And as he looks to the right, there's Orion, the cattle Taurus, the Aries sheep, and then you go a little further, and there's a body of water where there's Pisces, and that's the terrestrial kingdom. And then everything to this side is the celestial kingdom. But what did you just ask? Because it was super important.
Oh, just which direction are you facing to see the right hand and left hand?
To us, the south becomes our right hand is to the south. And to our left is the north and the constellations of the north, which is where
God's
all the
right hand and left hand are.
Yes.
The opposite.
So God is the opposite. His right hand is the kingdom of the north. So
Canada. Yes.
And so this is super important because you have to remember whose perspective
is being referenced.
So everything on the Lord's right hand is
to the north.
To the north. And it's the congregation of the north.
Astronomically.
Right?
Very fascinating.
And so the parable of the sheep, when he talks about the sheep are on my right and the goats are on my left. The sheep have ascended through the veil. They're following the good shepherd through the veil on the right-hand side, on the Lord's, right? And on his left is the goat, which is the constellation Capricorn. And that's to his left, the goat. And so it's just plain old simple astronomy.
There's nothing plain old simple about any of this conversation.
And you want to go on the right-hand side and follow the good shepherd through the veil. And through that veil is the marriage ceiling. Okay? To go the other way is to go up the back of the spine, which there is no marriage up the back of the spine. And that's a solo trip. You're doing that alone. And so all of the Eastern stuff is ascending the back of the spine to attain enlightenment and a sort of oblivion into the light, because it's not a physical destination you're going for. The right-hand side is a physical reality that requires a body and requires a mate to fulfill.
That is awesome.
Well, this is interesting. It seems clear. It seems clear that we've had this conversation, and whatever it ends up being, and that we could sit here, and we've talked about 2 or 3 panels, and we could sit here for days.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a.
And we should again.
And we should do it. Yeah, we will have to have you back on.
I think definitely.
Well,
there's fascinating.
Of course, I would love it. Yeah, I would love it.
Yeah, I think so.
Provided that the program still exists.
Yeah. As well, we're growing. With the brothers away, we're growing. So maybe they should just stay in Okinawa.
Hopefully I haven't gotten anybody into trouble.
No. The most blasphemous thing we've said today is that Pluto is not a planet.
I know.
That's correct.
So.
But
people are really angry.
Really briefly.
And Uranus.
Like right now, there's a lot of stuff going on astronomically. If you get the Stellarium app, it helps so much.
Really? The Stellarium app, what's that?
Stellarium app is a free
Stellarium?
app. Stellarium app is solid gold, and it's free.
Yeah.
And you can hold your phone up day or night and you know what all the constellations are.
Oh, that's cool. I
It's
use one called Star
indispensably
Walk,
helpful.
which cost me $10, but it might be the same thing. So Star Walk lets me, like, even in the daytime, I can point at the sky and it will say, these are the stars you were pointing at.
Oh, yeah.
And here are the names of the stars, and also here's the traditional constellation. I can point at the ground too, and it'll be like,
Oh, yeah.
That's Aries.
It's so easy.
Stellarium.
It's so easy.
Okay, people should check
And
it out.
so you look at your screen and you say, I want to face west, I want to face east, I want to go all the way around, I want to see. And it gives you these constellations, and they're all given form. You can see what they are, and you're like, holy cow, that's Saturn right there. I didn't know that was Saturn. I didn't know that was Jupiter.
And did you say stellarium? With an
Stellarium.
M?
Yes.
Okay,
It's
cool.
solid
Yeah, Stellarium
gold.
app, not Stellaria map, which is what I heard first.
That's what I heard too, yeah.
Yeah, so that's really cool.
You can
So-
learn more from just going on and it'll get you familiar with things super quick. But what I want to say is that's not what I'm doing. Like right now, there's a lot of cool stuff happening right now.
Right.
With planetary parades and black moons and, I don't care about that.
And this is not that.
This isn't that. That's cool stuff. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's not what I would rather be diagramming something than go out and look at this planetary parade.
Yeah.
To exaggerate.
Yeah.
Just to say this is about biblical language. That's all I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think you've got some very interesting stuff for people to look at and consider and think through.
Just trying to have a conversation that I hope a million other people would contribute to in their way, so the language can start to be spoken together.
Yeah.
So that people can argue about, have some language to argue, not to accept anything I've said.
Sure. Now this is that's it. I look, astronomy is cool. Odds are most people listening have very little notion of the night sky, and I have learned to love it. But it has also been something I have spent years looking at and thinking about. But in any case, you can go check out apotheosisscroll.com to see the half of the work that exists today and look for opportunities when it comes on display to your town, which has only happened a couple times.
One time.
Yeah, one time.
This is the second largest display that's ever been up. I hope it can start to get seen.
And when I
somehow,
looked up Apotheosis Scroll, I ended up finding a video game. So I'm going to say what ended up rerouting for me on my phone was CamronColeman.com. That's KAMRON Coleman.com.
Thank you.
And that's what got me to actually find it in the right place.
Yeah, fantastic.
And then I made some videos where I try to do some little bites, some little talks.
Yeah.
And they have animation. And I think the problem, nobody's watched them yet. Nobody knows who I am and what I'm doing.
This is Right Brain. It is not meant to teach a doctrine or a dogma. It is meant to provide an experience. You are meant to soak yourself in it, read the thing, let it sit there, think about it, and experience it in order and over time.
And I think the easiest way to experience it is probably through the videos.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just feel like, so I don't spend a lot of time seeking attention there. They're a resource for people to hopefully understand better. And so I don't know. I don't have the time to maintain a YouTube channel in a way that it's going to get watched.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to give little lessons. And really, I think if you go in order of those videos is the best tutorial for what this is.
Okay.
And I hope over time to keep adding to that. But in time, there will be a video about every panel where I go through every inch of that panel.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
And right now I've got like 2 or 3 done.
Yeah.
And then some little ancillary videos where I just do the golden calf
Yeah.
or the Garden of Eden, and that's a little 30-minute thing about the Garden of Eden and the astronomy of the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you all for being with us on this journey. I've had a great time. We'll see if we get Cameron and not to mention this guy, Apostle 2027, back as soon as we can. And in the
Certainly
meantime,
not now.
2028, is that better?
Yeah, exactly.
In the meantime, stay curious and hungry.